Have you ever woken up, not with the familiar pang of physical hunger or the dry rasp of thirst, but with a peculiar, profound, almost indefinable emptiness resonating deep within the very core of your being? It's more than just a fleeting sensation. It's a dull, persistent ache, a quiet, insistent hum beneath the surface of your meticulously constructed daily existence, a persistent whisper that seems to echo from the deepest chambers of your soul, asserting, "Surely, there has to be something more profound, something more enduring, something more real to all of this, doesn't there?" This feeling settles upon your spirit with a peculiar gravity, an invisible yet undeniably heavy burden that appears to be strapped firmly to your back, pushing down relentlessly on your shoulders, even when every outward circumstance in your life suggests that everything should be perfectly, even enviably, fine. It isn't necessarily a crushing wave of sadness, nor is it the sharp, acute pang of despair that leaves you breathless. Instead, it's something far more insidious, far more pervasive. A vague, gnawing dissatisfaction, an existential malaise that often accompanies an unsettling sense of being perpetually lost, adrift and rudderless in a vast, unpredictable ocean of a world that, on one hand, ceaselessly promises ultimate fulfillment, boundless opportunities, and instant gratification, yet on the other, frequently delivers a profound, bewildering, and deeply unsettling lack of meaning. It's that subtle, unsettling tremor of doubt, that quiet disquietude, that makes you question the very foundations of your striving, the true value of your ambitions, and the endless, often exhausting pursuit of external markers of success that somehow, inexplicably, never quite manage to fill the persistent, aching void within. It's the silent scream of the soul, yearning for authentic connection and purpose in a world that often prioritizes fleeting trends and superficial achievements. Take a moment, if you will, to truly immerse yourself in the imagery of the relentless, almost overwhelming current of modern existence that sweeps us all along, often without our conscious consent. Picture, in your mind's eye, the sprawling, glittering tapestries of our cities after dusk, where millions of individual neon lights blur into an endless, chaotic symphony of artificial glow, a dazzling yet often disorienting spectacle of human creation and consumption. Imagine the towering, imposing concrete canyons that stretch ever upwards, seemingly attempting to pierce the very heavens, each polished surface reflecting the hurried, often desperate ambitions and anxieties of millions, each window a tiny, illuminated square in a colossal, tirelessly buzzing hive of human endeavor. Think, too, about the incessant, almost hypnotic chatter of social media feeds, a ceaseless, overwhelming deluge of meticulously curated lives and perfectly constructed realities, each artfully filtered post, each strategically chosen image, a subtle yet insidious invitation to compare your own imperfect, messy journey against an unattainable, airbrushed ideal. It's a constant, pervasive background noise, this digital echo chamber, compelling us, often unconsciously, to envy, to strive relentlessly for an illusory perfection, and to feel just a little bit less, a little bit inadequate, a little bit behind, in the face of what others so effortlessly, or so it seems, appear to possess. This ceaseless comparison breeds a quiet despair, a feeling of always falling short, of never being enough. Then, shift your gaze to the relentless, almost serpentine procession of brake lights, stretching like a pulsating, living river of red into the distant, fading horizon during the evening rush hour, a familiar, almost ritualistic scene. Each individual car, a tiny metal capsule, carries its occupant towards some often forgotten destination, each driver immersed in their own private thoughts, their own personal desires, their own quiet anxieties and unspoken hopes. But for what ultimate purpose? What grand, overarching design truly underpins this daily, almost robotic ritual of commuting, of consuming, of tirelessly striving? We find ourselves navigating this vast, intricate labyrinth of information, this deafening cacophony of competing demands, conflicting expectations, and ever-present distractions, often feeling like nothing more than interchangeable cogs within an impossibly vast, tirelessly churning machine, a system that seems to exist independently of our individual needs or desires. Our most individual desires, our most authentic aspirations, our very core selves, slowly, subtly erode under the immense, unyielding pressure to conform to societal norms, to achieve quantifiable metrics of success, and above all, to incessantly perform for an unseen, often indifferent audience. This constant external validation loop often leaves us feeling hollowed out, profoundly disconnected from the very core of who we are meant to authentically be, leaving us exhausted and unfulfilled, perpetually chasing an elusive carrot. We are, it seems, constantly bombarded by an overwhelming barrage of directives and suggestions, a torrent of voices telling us what to do, what to think, what to want. Buy this new, indispensable gadget, subscribe to that essential streaming service, watch that viral sensation, aspire to be exactly like them, whoever they may be today. Yet, amidst all this relentless consumption, this constant input, this increasingly sophisticated and omnipresent distraction, that nagging feeling persists, stubbornly refusing to be silenced, refusing to be drowned out. It's the profound, undeniable yearning for something genuinely authentic, something truly lasting, something deeply meaningful, something that resonates with the deepest, most untouched, most primal parts of who we fundamentally are, rather than merely reflecting what we're repeatedly told we should aspire to be by external forces. It's that disquieting, almost jarring moment when you catch your own fleeting reflection in a darkened window pane, perhaps on a late-night train ride, or gazing out from a high-rise office, or when you find yourself staring blankly, mindlessly, unseeing, at your phone screen for what feels like an eternity, and an unbidden, deeply personal question surfaces, bubbling up from the depths of your subconscious. Is this truly all there is to this precious, finite life? Is this chaotic, often seemingly meaningless, perpetual chase after fleeting pleasures, after momentary thrills, and after ephemeral, ultimately unsatisfying successes the absolute summit of human experience, the highest peak we can hope to achieve? That question, that profound, unsettling unease, that existential tremor, often serves as the silent, unacknowledged catalyst, pushing us, perhaps unconsciously at first, then with increasing urgency, towards an internal quest, a deeply personal and solitary pilgrimage, even if we haven't yet consciously affixed that ancient, deeply meaningful label to our arduous, often solitary journey. It's a longing for something truly foundational, something sturdy to build our lives upon when the ground beneath us often feels like shifting sand. It's the deep human need to find an anchor in the storm, a beacon in the perpetual twilight of uncertainty. This journey is, at its very heart, a desperate, often arduous search for clarity amidst an ever-thickening fog of confusion, doubt, and uncertainty that seems to envelop our modern world. It's a deep-seated, inherent desire for unwavering direction and unshakable purpose when every conceivable path ahead seems equally promising in its initial allure, and, simultaneously, equally daunting in its potential pitfalls. It's the inherent human drive to truly understand why we are here on this earth, in this particular moment in history, what truly holds intrinsic and enduring value in this transient existence, and perhaps most importantly, how we can effectively shed the invisible, yet incredibly burdensome weights, the expectations, the regrets, the fears, the unfulfilled potentials that we have unknowingly, perhaps even unconsciously, accumulated and carried with us for far too long, hindering our true growth and freedom. This isn't about the traditional, romanticized image of donning a pilgrim's cloak, packing a humble backpack, and embarking on a purely physical journey to some geographically distant, sacred historical site, not in the strictly conventional, religious interpretation of the word pilgrimage. No, this specific kind of pilgrimage is far more fundamental, far more intimately personal, far more profound, and indeed, far more universally human than any outward ritual. It is, unequivocally, the journey of the soul, the mind, the spirit itself, desperately seeking its authentic home, its true north, its true resting place, amidst the overwhelming, often deafening noise, the incessant demands, and the disorienting clamor of the modern world. It is, undeniably, a spiritual quest, yes, but one that gracefully transcends the rigid boundaries of specific doctrines, the confines of particular dogmas, or the expectations of any singular faith tradition. Instead, it touches upon the very raw, undeniable essence of universal human striving for profound understanding, for an enduring inner peace that isn't contingent on external circumstances, for genuine, meaningful connection with others and indeed, with something immeasurably larger than oneself. whether you call that the divine, the universe, or simply a higher purpose, and ultimately, for a deeply rooted purpose that feels authentically, unequivocally, and profoundly our own. It's the search for congruence between our innermost selves and our outermost lives, a tireless quest for integrity in the broadest, most holistic sense of the word. It's the yearning for a life that feels resonant, intentional, and deeply true. Consider, for a moment, the stark, almost jarring contrast to those rare, precious, and often fleeting moments of profound inner peace that occasionally grace our often frenzied lives. Perhaps it's a quiet, contemplative walk through the hushed grandeur of an ancient, whispering forest, where dappled sunlight filters like liquid gold through an emerald canopy of leaves, creating intricate patterns on the forest floor, and the rich, earthy scent of damp soil and ancient pine needles fills your lungs with a restorative, life-affirming breath. Or maybe it's the breathtaking, awe-inspiring, unblemished expanse of a starlit desert sky, a vast, inky canvas dotted with untold millions of distant suns, humbling you with its unimaginable immensity and cosmic indifference, yet paradoxically making your individual struggles feel both minuscule in the grand, sweeping scheme of things and, at the very same moment, incredibly significant in their deeply personal weight and urgency. These are the sacred moments when we catch an elusive glimpse of a deeper, more profound order to the universe, an undeniable connection to something immeasurably larger, more ancient, and more enduring than our individual selves or our immediate concerns. These are the fleeting instances that hint powerfully, unmistakably, at the very answers we've been so desperately seeking, perhaps in all the wrong, superficial, or easily accessible places. They offer us a temporary, blessed reprieve from the relentless internal burden, a momentary, exhilarating lightness that makes us yearn, with every fiber of our being, for more of that liberating clarity, more of that authentic connection, more of that profound understanding. It's in these quiet, contemplative spaces, these moments of intentional solitude, or often in the profound, sometimes daunting solitude of our own deepest minds and hearts, that the truest, most transformative journey truly begins. It's where we finally manage to shed the relentless external noise, the clamor of expectations, and the weight of unnecessary distractions, and begin to hear the quiet, steady whispers of our own soul, gently yet firmly guiding us forward along a path that feels undeniably right. It's where the initial burden starts to lighten, just a little, giving us a taste of what true freedom might feel like. Because at its most fundamental and undeniable level, what we are all ultimately seeking, regardless of our diverse geographical backgrounds, our deeply held spiritual beliefs, or our often challenging personal and professional circumstances, is a clear, viable, and sustainable path to becoming a better, more integrated, more enlightened, and more compassionate version of ourselves. It's a relentless quest for a clearer, more expansive, and more nuanced understanding of our precise place within the vast, intricate, and often bewildering tapestry of the cosmos, and a definitive, liberating release from the myriad of subtle, insidious, and often self-imposed burdens of the unexamined fears, the lingering regrets, the unspoken anxieties, the unfulfilled potentials, the societal expectations that have unknowingly, perhaps for years, held us captive, prevented us from flourishing, and severely limited our true growth and freedom. It is, in essence, a timeless quest for what the ancient philosophers eloquently called wisdom, for what contemporary psychologists might term self-actualization or flourishing, and for what so many of us, in our everyday, often reductive language, simply describe as achieving happiness or fulfillment. But it is crucial to understand that it is a far more profound, a far more transformative, a far more challenging, and indeed, a far more arduous and intricate process than those deceptively simple words often manage to convey. It is the challenging, yet ultimately infinitely rewarding, journey from a state of being profoundly lost, utterly bewildered, and perpetually weighed down by the incessant demands and expectations of the world, to one of unwavering clarity, unshakable purpose, and a genuine, deeply rooted, and truly unshakable inner peace that can weather any storm, endure any trial, and withstand any temptation. It is the arduous journey of becoming truly, authentically, and profoundly whole. And now, what if I were to tell you that over 350 years ago, a staggering expanse of time that bridges centuries, collapses cultural divides, and encompasses countless individual human experiences. A man who found himself in precisely this very predicament, wrestling with the crushing, claustrophobic weight of existential dread, searching with every fiber of his being for a discernible, navigable path through what he perceived as a profoundly chaotic, often menacing, and deeply uncertain world, sat down, not in comfort or luxury, but in the stark confines of a prison cell, and penned an extraordinary visionary story, a vivid, allegorical narrative, crafted with painstaking detail, profound theological insight, and an unparalleled understanding of the human heart, that still serves, even today, as a remarkably relevant, illuminating, and incredibly practical map for this very universal human journey we've been discussing. This seminal book was written by a remarkable man named John Bunyan, penned not in comfort or luxury, but while he was unjustly imprisoned for his deeply held religious beliefs, a powerful testament to the indomitable spirit of human conviction and the enduring power of faith, hope, and artistic expression even in the direst circumstances. It is a book that has, since its initial publication, transcended its specific historical context, its theological underpinnings, and its original audience to become one of the most widely published, most translated, and most enduring works in the entire history of global literature, often cited as being second only to the Bible itself in terms of its global reach, its profound impact, and its enduring influence on countless generations of readers. The book is, of course, called The Pilgrim's Progress from This World to That Which Is to Come. And while its language might initially seem archaic, a relic from a bygone era, perhaps a little dense or unfamiliar to the modern ear, its core message, its timeless blueprint for effectively navigating the relentless internal and external obstacles, the temptations, the trials, the moments of doubt and despair that inevitably arise on the path to genuine meaning, authentic self-discovery, and ultimate spiritual liberation, is as fresh, as vital, as profoundly resonant, and as incredibly relevant today in our hypermodern, complex, and often bewildering world, as it was when it first saw the light of day all those centuries ago. It's not merely a story about one man's singular, personal spiritual quest. It is, more accurately, a profound and deeply resonant exploration of the universal human experience of confronting seemingly insurmountable despair, of courageously resisting the siren calls of temptation and distraction, of diligently seeking out and finding true allies, wise mentors, and steadfast companions along the way, and ultimately, of relentlessly striving for something immeasurably higher, something nobler, something truly divine and eternal. It encapsulates a fundamental, undeniable journey we all, in our own unique and often challenging ways, must inevitably take, in one form or another, whether we consciously acknowledge its profound significance or not. And perhaps, just perhaps, this ancient, time-honored map, steeped in wisdom and human experience, holds precisely the profound directions, the illuminating insights, the compassionate understanding, and the guiding wisdom. You've been so earnestly, so desperately, yet perhaps unconsciously, searching for all along, without even fully knowing its name or its history. It's time to unfurl this map, to understand its symbols, and to begin our own progress. Have you ever felt it? That quiet hum of discontent, a nagging sense that there must be more to life than the daily grind, the endless scrolling, the constant striving? Perhaps it's a whisper of anxiety in the quiet hours, a doubt about your path, or a deep yearning for something profound, something lasting, something true amidst all the noise. We live in an age of unprecedented connection, yet many of us feel profoundly alone in our struggles. We have instant access to information, yet wisdom often feels elusive, hidden behind layers of complexity and distraction. We're all, in our own way, on a journey, sometimes stumbling, sometimes soaring, always searching for purpose, for peace, for a place where our souls can finally rest. What if I told you that over 350 years ago, a man confined to a prison cell penned a story that speaks directly to these very modern struggles? A story not of kings or battles, but of an ordinary man's extraordinary spiritual odyssey. A story that, despite its age, feels as fresh, as relevant, and as urgently needed today as it did when it first captivated readers centuries ago. This, my friends, is the introduction to our journey through John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress from This World to That Which Is to Come. Written by a tinker, a preacher, a man imprisoned for his faith, Bunyan's masterpiece is more than just a book. It's a living, breathing map of the human soul. It's an allegory, yes, filled with symbolic characters and fantastical places, but it's an allegory so profoundly rooted in the universal human experience that it transcends its religious origins to offer timeless insights into psychology, philosophy, and the very nature of our existence. But here's the thing, we're not just going to read this book. No, that would be far too passive. Instead, we are going to walk alongside its hero, a man aptly named Christian. We will join him as he embarks on his perilous pilgrimage, fleeing the city of destruction and seeking the celestial city. Think of me not as a scholar lecturing from on high, but as a fellow traveler, a guide who has journeyed through these pages many times, eager to share the landmarks and the lessons I've discovered along the way. Our aim is to take the rich, often dense language of this 17th century text and translate its allegorical struggles into the vivid, immediate language of our own lives. When Christian grapples with the slough of despond, we'll ask ourselves, where are our swamps of despair? Those moments when hope feels lost and progress seems impossible. When he navigates the Vanity Fair, we'll reflect on the temptations and distractions of our modern marketplace, where shiny objects and fleeting pleasures promise satisfaction but rarely deliver. We'll explore Christian's anxieties, his hopes, his doubts, his moments of weakness and triumph, and see them mirrored in our own hearts. This isn't about rigid adherence to doctrine. It's about deep, personal introspection. It's about recognizing the universal patterns of the human journey, identifying our own internal and external obstacles, and finding courage and clarity to press onward. Over the course of this series, we will delve deep, stage by stage, into the landscape of Christian's journey. We'll meet the colorful cast of characters he encounters, from the deceitful pliable and obstinate to the wise evangelist and faithful. We'll confront the formidable giants, Giant Despair, Giant Maul, and explore the treacherous paths like the Valley of Humiliation and the Shadow of Death. Each step will be an opportunity to not just understand Bunyan's genius, but to understand ourselves better. And it won't stop there. Once we've immersed ourselves in each key stage of the narrative, we'll pivot. We'll then explore practical ways to apply the profound wisdom embedded within these pages to our everyday lives. How can this ancient allegory help us navigate our careers, our relationships, our personal growth? How can it equip us to face our own disappointments, celebrate our small victories, and sustain our sense of purpose when the road gets tough? How can it offer a framework for resilience and hope in an often chaotic world? The tone we'll cultivate together on this journey will be one of deep contemplation, empathy, and encouragement. This isn't a lecture. It's an invitation. It's an exploration rooted in psychological and spiritual insight, rather than rigid theological dogma. While Bunyan wrote from a specific religious perspective, the genius of The Pilgrim's Progress lies in its universal appeal, its uncanny ability to speak to anyone who has ever felt like a stranger in a strange land, seeking a better home, a truer self. It's a story about finding strength in vulnerability, light in darkness, and meaning in the seemingly mundane. So, if you've ever felt like your life is a journey with an uncertain destination, if you've grappled with questions of faith, purpose, or identity, if you're simply curious about a story that has shaped generations of seekers, then you are exactly where you need to be. Prepare to step outside the familiar, to look inward, and to discover why this 350-year-old tale isn't just a classic of literature, but a profound mirror reflecting our most modern struggles and offering an enduring beacon of hope. Let's begin our pilgrimage. Chapter 1: The Burden of Awareness and the Escape from Destruction. Welcome back to the channel, where we explore great stories, soul-stirring ideas, and transformative journeys. Today, we begin a true adventure, one that has shaped thought and inspired millions for centuries. The Journey of the Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. This is not just an old book. It is a spiritual map, a mirror reflecting our own lives. And in this video, we will dive into Chapter 1, titled, The Burden of Awareness and the Escape from the City of Destruction. This is where everything begins, where the seed of transformation is planted in a soul filled with fear and confusion. Imagine this: you're living a life that feels ordinary, familiar. Everyone around you is the same. Everything moves along as usual. But then, suddenly one day, an internal alarm rings. A realization bursts forth, so clear you can't ignore it. That is exactly what happens to Christian. At the beginning, we meet Christian in a state that cannot be misunderstood. He is carrying a burden on his back. Bunyan describes it not just as discomfort, but as a literal weight, a blanket of suffering and guilt pressing down on his soul. But this is no ordinary burden. It is the burden of awareness. He has read a book, likely the Bible, and that book has opened his eyes. It shows him a terrifying truth. Not only is he living in spiritual poverty, but the city he calls home, the familiar and safe city of destruction, is standing on the brink of doom. Let's pause for a moment, because this scene is deeply familiar to so many of us. Isn't it? That sudden aha moment, when the veil of ignorance tears apart. Maybe it's when you realize that the job you thought was stable and safe is actually draining your soul bit by bit. Maybe it's when you look at your relationships and sense an emptiness you used to ignore. Or maybe it's when you notice that your daily habits, your endless loops, are leading you toward a place you don't truly want to be. Christian's burden is not a physical problem or a visible difficulty. It is an inner burden, a deep understanding of decay, of spiritual death lurking nearby. He feels condemned, and he feels that the world around him is condemned as well. This fear cannot be easily put into words, but it is overwhelming. A silent terror that paralyzes every part of his life. He can no longer sleep peacefully, work with focus, or enjoy simple pleasures. Everything becomes meaningless once he sees the larger picture, the picture of coming destruction. And this is where we must humanize the city of destruction. Bunyan does not describe it as a place full of obvious evil, fire, or screams. No, the city of destruction is any state of comfortable ignorance, any easy complacency we find ourselves stuck in. It is the safe, repetitive life where we can exist without facing big questions or uncomfortable truths. Think of it as a meaningless job, a relationship that has grown cold but is maintained out of convenience, an endless cycle of consumption, or even an information bubble where we only hear what we want to hear. The city of destruction is comfort masking decay. It is familiar numbness, where maintaining the status quo is far easier than confronting truth and making change. The problem is that when you begin to see the cracks in the walls of your city of destruction, others may not see them. They may look at you and ask, "What's wrong? Why are you worried? Everything is fine." And this only deepens Christian's sense of isolation. He tries to share his fear with his family and friends, but they mock him, get confused, or try to pull him back into their version of reality. They cannot see the burden he carries, nor the flames he believes are approaching. Leaving a familiar place is hard, even when you know it is decaying. It takes great courage to stand up and say, "I can't stay here anymore. I have to go." Leaving the city of destruction is not just a physical act. It is a break from everything you know, everything that has shaped you. It is a declaration that you will no longer trade comforting illusions for the slow destruction of your soul. And Christian makes that choice. He runs, with the cries of his family echoing behind him. But leaving does not solve everything immediately. In fact, it often opens the door to completely new challenges. And that is when Christian encounters his first obstacle, something Bunyan calls the Slough of Despond. Imagine a filthy, muddy path with no escape, a pit of deep, sticky black mud. Christian, having just fled the false comfort of the city of destruction, immediately falls into this swamp. This is not just a physical obstacle. It is a perfect reflection of the first wave of depression, doubt, and despair we often face when trying to change our lives. You've made a brave decision. You've stepped out of your comfort zone. And then, boom, you are suddenly overwhelmed with negative emotions. What have I done? Am I on the wrong path? Is this a terrible mistake? These questions start to echo in your mind. You feel like you're sinking, unable to lift your feet, trapped in the mud of anxiety and regret. The Slough of Despond is the place where all unresolved fears, hidden doubts, and past failures rise up to drown you. It is the feeling of powerlessness when you realize change is not as easy as you thought. It is the whispered voice telling you, go back. At least in the city of destruction, you knew what to expect. It is where the initial excitement of starting a new journey fades into discouragement and exhaustion. Christian, stuck in the slough of despond, feels completely lost. He struggles, but every struggle sinks him deeper. The burden on his back feels even heavier. He has no idea what to do or where to go. This swamp is filled not just with mud, but with fears, doubts, disgust, and frightening thoughts of everyone who has ever tried a similar journey and got stuck. It is a psychological trap made of humanity's collective failures and fears. But then, a figure appears, a glimmer of light in the fog of despair. This is Evangelist. Who is Evangelist? He is not a savior lifting Christian out of the swamp. No, Evangelist represents something deeper. A call to action from the outside, a wise word, a timely piece of knowledge, or a spark of hope. Think of it this way, you're stuck in your own slough of despond. Maybe you're overwhelmed by a new project, a major life change, or simply losing motivation when things get tough. Then one day you read a book, hear a podcast, watch a YouTube video, talk to a wise friend, or a sudden insight appears. That is your Evangelist. Evangelist asks Christian a simple but awakening question. What are you doing in this swamp? It is not judgment. It is a reminder that Christian has a purpose. And then Evangelist doesn't pull him out. He points the way. He asks, do you see the wicket gate over there? And do you see the shining light over there? He doesn't give easy answers. He gives direction, a foothold for Christian to move toward. Evangelist's role is crucial because he reminds Christian of the purpose of the journey. In despair, it is easy to forget why you began. Evangelist reaffirms the vision, reminding Christian of the gate and the shining light, symbols of salvation and hope. He doesn't fix the problem, but he gives Christian a tool, a direction, and a reminder that the path still exists and is worth pursuing. It's important to remember that Evangelist does not make the road easier. Christian still must walk it himself. He still must find his way out of the swamp. But now he has a clear destination, a goal to move toward. That is the power of timely guidance. A light in the darkness, a trusted voice when everything else seems to crumble. And so, in Chapter 1, we witness Christian experience three profoundly important stages of any transformative journey. First, the burden of awareness, the painful but necessary moment when you see the truth of yourself and your environment. Second, the hardship of leaving the familiar, the city of destruction with its comfortable illusions, despite opposition and ridicule. Third, confronting the slough of despond, the first wave of doubt, fear, and discouragement when the beginning steps of change become difficult. But we also see the first spark of hope, the role of Evangelist, the guiding voice that reminds us that even in the darkest moments, there is still a path ahead, a gate to seek, and a light to follow. This is only the beginning of Christian's journey, and the beginning of our exploration of this book. Every step he takes carries deep lessons for our own lives. And I believe that as we continue to follow his struggles and victories, we too will find the light to rise from our own sloughs of despond and continue our path toward transformation. Join me in the next chapter as Christian takes his first difficult steps and encounters new characters and challenges along the way. Thank you for listening. Chapter 2. The Search for the True Path and the House of Wisdom. Welcome back, fellow travelers. Last time we left Christian, burdened by his heavy load of sin, fleeing the city of destruction. He just met Evangelist, who pointed him towards a glimmering light, the wicket gate, the first step on his long journey. But as anyone who's ever set out on a difficult path knows, the initial resolve is often tested almost immediately. And that, dear friends, brings us to our second chapter, The Search for the True Path and the House of Wisdom. This segment of Christian's story, for me, really zeroes in on one of life's most critical skills: discernment. How do we tell good advice from bad? How do we distinguish between a true shortcut that leads to freedom and a deceptive detour that only makes us more lost? Because let me tell you, the world is full of smooth talkers promising easy ways out of our deepest struggles. And Christian, still a novice pilgrim, is about to encounter one of the most persuasive. Imagine Christian walking along, still distraught, eyes fixed on that distant light, but his steps heavy with the burden on his back. He's trying his best, but the way is hard, the load crushing. And then he meets Mr. Worldly Wiseman. Now, Bunyan doesn't describe him as a villain with a twisted mustache. No, Mr. Worldly Wiseman is exactly what his name implies. A man of the world, seemingly reasonable, well-spoken, and utterly convinced he knows the best way to live. He sees Christian's distress, his visible burden, and he swoops in, not with harsh words, but with a seemingly compassionate offer of an alternative. Mr. Worldly Wiseman suggests that the path Evangelist directed Christian to is far too difficult, too harsh, too narrow. Why endure such hardship, he asks, when there's an easier, more convenient route right here, practically in sight. He points towards a village called Morality and a town called Legality. In that village, he explains with a reassuring smile, there lives a gentleman whose name is Legality, a very judicious man, and a man of great reputation, who is skilled to help men off with such burdens as yours. He goes on to say that Legality has a son, Civility, who is just as capable. He paints a picture of comfort, convenience, and a quick fix. Just head to Mount Sinai, where Legality lives, and all your troubles will vanish. You'll find a fine house there, plenty of provisions, and the burden will be gone. Now, pause with me for a moment and consider the sheer appeal of this offer. Christian is suffering. He's been told by Evangelist to go through a narrow gate, to continue a difficult journey. But Mr. Worldly Wiseman offers immediate relief, a comfortable home, and a respected, rational solution. He's essentially offering a path of self-improvement, of relying on one's own good works and moral behavior to overcome one's problems, rather than the radical, grace-filled path proposed by Evangelist. It's the difference between trying to earn your freedom through your own efforts and accepting a gift you don't deserve but desperately need. And isn't that just like life? When we're facing a profound inner struggle, how often do we gravitate towards the self-help book that promises a 5-step program to happiness, rather than the deep, often painful, internal work that truly transforms us? We want the quick fix, the pill for the spiritual ailment, the elegant, worldly wise solution. Christian, desperate for relief, is momentarily swayed. He turns off the true path, heading towards Mount Sinai, towards Legality and Morality. And as he approaches, the mountain begins to loom over him, casting a shadow, threatening to crush him with its very presence. The path becomes narrower, rockier, more treacherous than anything Evangelist had described. He finds himself stuck, unable to move forward, fearing the mountain will fall on him. The promised ease turns into a terrifying trap. And it's at this crucial moment that Evangelist reappears. Evangelist, with a grave but loving look, confronts Christian. "What are you doing here, Christian?" he asks. He reminds Christian of his initial warning, that the path of the world, no matter how appealing, ultimately leads to death. He explains that Legality, far from being able to remove Christian's burden, would only add to it, for the law cannot save, it can only condemn. It's like trying to cure a deadly disease with a bandage. It looks like a solution, but it doesn't address the root cause. This moment is a powerful reminder that true guidance, even if it feels harsh in the moment, is often the only way to avoid far greater peril down the line. It's the tough love that says, "This is hard, but it's the right kind of hard, the kind that leads to life." Chastened, almost despairing, Christian confesses his error, his foolishness in listening to the silver-tongued Mr. Worldly Wiseman. And Evangelist, seeing Christian's genuine repentance, once again points him back to the wicket gate, to the path of life. He doesn't condemn Christian for his mistake, but gently restores him, showing the true nature of grace, a willingness to forgive and redirect, even when we stumble. So, Christian turns back, shaking off the alluring deception of the easy path, and recommits himself to the narrow way. He's now focused, not on escaping his burden through a worldly means, but on finding the true deliverance promised by Evangelist. He resumes his journey towards that glimmering light, towards the wicket gate. Now, this wicket gate isn't just a point on a map, It's a profound symbol. It represents the commitment we must make to a difficult but righteous path. It's not some grand, welcoming archway with trumpets playing and velvet carpets. No, it's a small, humble gate, almost hidden, requiring effort to find and even more effort to enter. Bunyan emphasizes its narrowness, its smallness. It's a gate that demands humility, a willingness to shed all excess baggage, all pride, all self-sufficiency. You can't stride through it, you must stoop. You can't bring your worldly wisdom or your self-righteousness. Christian struggles to find it, then struggles to enter it. He knocks, he waits, and finally, a figure named Goodwill opens the gate. Goodwill isn't just a gatekeeper. He represents the open arms of grace, the willingness of the divine to receive all who genuinely seek entry, despite their past. Goodwill pulls Christian in quickly, warning him that there are archers on the other side, aiming to shoot those who try to enter. This detail is crucial. Even the act of turning towards the path of righteousness is met with opposition. The forces that want to keep us lost don't give up easily. This reminds me of those moments in life when you decide to make a big, positive change. Say, start a new fitness routine or pursue a challenging educational goal. And suddenly, everything seems to conspire against you. Old habits resurface, new obstacles appear, discouragement creeps in. That's the archers trying to turn you back. Goodwill questions Christian not out of suspicion, but out of care. He wants to understand Christian's motive, his distress, his commitment. This isn't a casual entry. It's a deliberate, informed choice. Christian recounts his journey, his burden, his fear of judgment. And Goodwill assures him that the gate stands open for any man, so ever so come. This speaks to the universal invitation of grace. No matter who you are, what you've done, the gate is open if you genuinely seek it. Having passed through the wicket gate, Christian isn't immediately unburdened. The load is still there, reminding him of his past. But he's now on the right path, heading in the right direction. Goodwill directs him to the next crucial stop on his journey, the interpreter's house. And this, for me, is where the journey truly deepens, moving beyond mere physical progress to profound intellectual and spiritual understanding. The interpreter's house is not a place of action, but a place of contemplation, education, and revelation. Christian is not given another task to perform. He's given lessons to learn. It's a period of deep self-reflection, guided by the wisdom of the interpreter. Think of it as a spiritual classroom, where the principles that will guide his entire journey are laid bare through symbolic scenes. And how often do we skip this step in our own lives? We want to do things, achieve things, fix things without first taking the time to truly understand them. We rush into solutions without comprehending the problem's roots. The interpreter, a figure representing the Holy Spirit or divine wisdom, leads Christian through several rooms, each revealing a profound truth through a vivid allegory. First, Christian is shown a dust-filled parlor. The interpreter asks for it to be swept. A man begins sweeping, and the dust flies everywhere, making the air thick and almost suffocating. This represents the human heart, naturally inclined to sin. If we try to cleanse it through the law alone, through our own efforts and self-righteousness, the sweeping, we only stir up more sin, more guilt, more despair. The law, on its own, exposes our sin without providing the power to overcome it, making things worse, not better. Then a maid comes and sprinkles water on the floor, and then it can be swept clean. The water represents the gospel, the grace of Christ. It softens the heart, calms the agitation of the law, and enables true cleansing. This scene teaches Christian that genuine transformation isn't about human effort alone, but about the enabling power of grace. You can't just try harder, you need divine assistance. Next, Christian is shown two children, passion and patience. Passion demands everything now, refusing to wait for future blessings. He gets a chest full of toys and finery, but he squanders it all almost immediately. Patience, on the other hand, is willing to wait, knowing that the greatest rewards come later. This allegory vividly illustrates the difference between worldly gratification and spiritual reward. Worldly pleasures are fleeting, easily consumed, and leave us empty. Eternal joys, though they require patience and perseverance, are lasting and infinitely more valuable. It's the constant struggle within us. Do we pursue the immediate pleasure or the lasting good? The quick fix or the profound transformation? Then, Christian sees a fire burning against a wall, with someone continually pouring water on it to put it out. Yet, the fire continues to burn brightly. The interpreter then takes Christian behind the wall, where he sees a person secretly pouring oil onto the fire from the other side. The fire represents the work of grace in the believer's heart, which Satan, the one pouring water, constantly tries to extinguish. But Christ, the one pouring oil, invisibly sustains it. This deeply comforting scene reassures Christian that his faith, though constantly assailed by temptations and doubts, is sustained by a divine, invisible hand. We are not left to fight our battles alone. Our perseverance is not solely our own strength but a gift of grace. The interpreter then leads Christian to a harrowing sight: a man in an iron cage. This man, once a joyful believer, is now consumed by despair, believing there is no hope for him, no possibility of repentance or salvation. He deliberately turned away from the path, hardened his heart, and quenched the spirit. This serves as a stark warning against spiritual presumption and final impenitence. It's a powerful reminder of the danger of willfully rejecting grace, of trifling with spiritual matters, and ultimately, of despairing of God's mercy. It's a sobering lesson that choice has eternal consequences. Finally, Christian is shown a dream of the Last Judgment, a vision of the righteous ascending to heaven and the wicked being cast into hell. This scene reinforces the immense stakes of his journey, reminding him of the ultimate destination and the urgency of pressing forward. It's a call to keep the eternal perspective in mind, to not get bogged down by the temporary allurements or distractions of the world. Christian emerges from the interpreter's house profoundly changed. He hasn't moved physically, but he has undergone an immense internal transformation. He now possesses a deeper understanding of himself, the nature of sin and grace, the subtle deceptions of the world, and the sustaining power of God. He's learned that true progress on the spiritual path isn't just about taking steps. It's about understanding why those steps are necessary, what dangers lurk, and what divine provisions are available. This concept, that true progress requires not just action but profound understanding, is absolutely vital. We live in a world that often values outward achievement and immediate results. We want to check off boxes, complete tasks, move from one point to another. But Bunyan, through the interpreter's house, tells us that without a deep, foundational understanding of the principles at play, our actions can be misguided, our efforts futile, and our resolve easily broken. This period of quiet learning and reflection equips Christian with the tools of discernment, allowing him to distinguish truth from error, genuine help from deceit, and lasting value from fleeting pleasure. He now has a mental framework, a spiritual compass, that will guide him through the complex and often confusing landscapes ahead. So, Christian, no longer merely an earnest but naive pilgrim, but now a truly informed and prepared traveler, continues his journey. He carries not just his physical burden but also the weighty lessons learned at the interpreter's house, lessons that will serve as his shield and his guide in the trials yet to come. He is now ready, not just to walk the path, but to understand why he's walking it and what he's truly striving for. And that, my friends, is a monumental difference. The journey ahead remains difficult, but now, he is equipped with wisdom. Chapter 3: The Price of Freedom and the Palace of Rest. Welcome back, fellow travelers, to our journey through the timeless allegory of John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress. We've seen Christian leave his home, burdened by the immense weight of sin, escape the clever but ultimately damning rhetoric of worldly wise men, and find his way, however circuitously, back onto the straight and narrow path, guided by the welcoming hand of goodwill. He's passed through the treacherous slough of despond, faced his own internal doubts and the heavy critiques of those who couldn't understand his quest, and yet, he has persevered, holding on to a fragile but potent glimmer of hope. But the true turning point, the moment of profound transformation that forever alters his trajectory, awaits him. And that, my friends, is precisely where our third chapter truly begins. At the foot of the cross, where the price of freedom is paid, and then onto the rigorous ascent of hill difficulty and the comforting embrace of the Palace Beautiful. Christian, you'll recall, has been carrying this colossal, crushing burden on his back since the very beginning of his spiritual awakening. A physical manifestation, a palpable symbol of his sin, his guilt, his existential dread, and the terrifying fear of judgment to come. It has been a constant, oppressive companion, pressing him down, making every step a monumental effort, stealing his breath and clouding his vision. He's been told by Evangelist that it will fall off at a certain place, a place he must reach to find true peace. But what that sacred place is, he does not yet fully comprehend. He only knows he must keep moving towards it with every fiber of his being. He presses on, following the way the interpreter showed him, a path enclosed on either side by a sturdy wall called salvation. And as he walked, his pace quickened, driven now by a growing, almost desperate sense of anticipation, a fervent hope that this unbearable weight might finally be lifted. The sheer physical and emotional toll of the burden had become almost unbearable. He longed for relief with every aching muscle. Then, ahead of him on a little rising ground, a gentle but significant hillock, he saw it. A cross, stark and simple, yet radiating an inexplicable power. And a little below it, dark and silent, a sepulchre. As soon as Christian came up to the cross, as his eyes rested upon its form, something truly extraordinary, something miraculous, happened. The moment he looked upon it, his burden, which had been so tightly bound to his shoulders, which had felt so much a part of his very flesh and bone, began to loosen. It literally, physically, slipped from his back. It didn't just fall. It tumbled, gaining momentum, rolling down the slight incline of the hill, and plunged directly into the mouth of the sepulchre. And there, to Christian's astonishment, he saw it no more. It was gone. Utterly, irrevocably gone. Can you imagine that moment? Take a breath with me and picture it. The sudden, astonishing lightness, the immediate, profound absence of that familiar, crushing weight. For so long, it had been an inseparable part of him, defining his posture, dictating his pace, influencing his every thought and movement. It was his shadow, his tormentor, his identity. And then, in an instant, it was simply not there. This wasn't just a symbolic release. For Christian, it was a profound, almost cataclysmic psychological and spiritual shift. It was catharsis in its purest, most divine form. The accumulated guilt from a lifetime of sin, the paralyzing fear of judgment, the crushing reality of his own fallen nature, all of it, in that single, glorious, unearned moment, simply vanished into the sepulchre of oblivion. It's an image that resonates with a universal human truth, isn't it? We all carry burdens, perhaps not as literal or as physically manifest as Christians, but burdens of regret, shame, anxiety, unforgiveness, past mistakes, future fears. We cling to them sometimes out of habit, out of a perverse sense of familiarity, or perhaps because the thought of letting go feels too vulnerable, too terrifying, too unknown. We define ourselves by our struggles. But here, Bunyan, with the brilliance of a prophet, shows us the ultimate act of grace. Christian didn't do anything heroic to earn this release. He didn't climb mountains or defeat monsters. He simply looked. He arrived, he saw, and the burden was lifted, not by his strength, not by his merit, but by the sheer, unmerited, transformative power of the cross. It's a powerful testament to the idea of unearned favor, of a divine intervention that liberates us from the very things we cannot shake off ourselves, no matter how hard we try. It's the moment the soul exhales after holding its breath, perhaps for a lifetime. The relief is palpable, even for us, the readers. Filled with an unprecedented joy and an overwhelming, tearful relief, Christian literally leaped and sang and wept for sheer gladness. The feeling must have been absolutely overwhelming, almost too much to contain. He had gone from desperate, crushing fear to overflowing, unbridled joy, from being bound and condemned to being utterly, miraculously free. And in this state of blissful liberation, three shining ones, three glorious angelic figures, appeared to him, radiating light and peace. The first greeted him, saying, with a voice that must have sounded like pure melody, "Peace be to thee. Thy sins be forgiven thee." Imagine the weight of those words, confirming his deepest hope. The second stripped him of his old rags, the tattered, soiled garments of his former life, emblems of his guilt and sin, and clothed him, instead, with new raiment, dazzling white and clean, a symbol of his new identity in Christ, his righteousness. And the third set a distinct, indelible mark upon his forehead, a seal, marking him as belonging to the king, and then gave him a sealed roll, instructing him to look at it as he journeyed, for comfort and guidance, and to deliver it at the celestial gate as his passport. With these invaluable gifts, forgiveness, a new identity, and an assurance of his ultimate destination, the Shining Ones departed, leaving Christian to continue his journey, but now, utterly transformed, inside and out. He was a new man, indeed. The journey ahead was still long, certainly, but the heaviest, most debilitating part of his load was gone forever. He walked on, light of foot and heart, singing praises, filled with a new kind of energy and purpose. This, you might think, is the happy ending, right? He's free. All challenges should now cease, and the rest of the path should be smooth sailing. But Bunyan, in his profound spiritual wisdom and keen understanding of the human condition, knew better. True freedom, spiritual freedom, is not the absence of struggle. It is the equipping to face struggle with a different spirit, a different power, a different perspective. And so, no sooner has Christian experienced this profound, life-altering liberation than he encounters a fresh set of challenges, reminding us, and him, that transformation is a continuous process, a journey, not a static destination. He hadn't walked far, perhaps still basking in the glow of his recent deliverance, when he saw 3 men, fast asleep, lying by the wayside. Their names were Simple, Sloth, and Presumption. They were bound in chains, but so deep was their slumber, so profound their spiritual apathy, that they seemed utterly oblivious to their perilous plight. Christian, with his newfound freedom bubbling within him, a fresh spring of compassion in his heart, felt a sharp pang of pity and concern. How could they sleep when such danger lurked? He called out to them, his voice filled with urgency, trying to rouse them from their dangerous slumber, warning them of the ever-present danger of the destroyer, who preyed on the unwary. He even offered to help loosen their bands, to share the freedom he had so recently acquired. But what was their response? It was stark, almost chilling in its indifference. Simple, barely stirring, mumbled, "I see no danger." Sloth, with a sigh of profound laziness, replied, "Yet a little more sleep." And Presumption, with an arrogant dismissiveness that bordered on contempt, declared, "Every tub must stand upon its own bottom," implying a self-sufficiency that defied all warning. With that, they turned over and went back to their deadly sleep, utterly unresponsive to grace or peril. This encounter is so critical, so poignant, because it immediately challenges the naive idea that liberation from one burden means the end of all trials. Instead, it highlights new kinds of temptations, not of crushing guilt, but of complacency, apathy, and overconfidence. Simple represents willful ignorance, the dangerous belief that if you don't see danger, it doesn't exist, a deliberate turning away from truth. This manifests today as dismissing uncomfortable truths, ignoring warning signs, or simply refusing to engage with serious spiritual matters. Sloth is the spiritual laziness, the unwillingness to exert any effort for one's salvation or spiritual growth, preferring immediate comfort and inaction over the hard work of discipleship. How many times do we choose distraction over devotion, entertainment over engagement? Presumption is perhaps the most insidious, the arrogant assumption of divine favor without genuine repentance, without active faith, or without any effort, believing one is inherently safe regardless of their actions, relying on a distorted understanding of grace. It's the dangerous once saved, always saved, so no need to bother mentality, divorced from genuine transformation. Christian, having just experienced the immense, unearned grace of the cross, is now confronted with those who utterly disregard it, not out of malice, but out of a profound lack of awareness, an ingrained spiritual lethargy, or sheer self-delusion. Their chains are invisible to them, their slumber so deep that even a literal voice of warning and an offer of help cannot penetrate. It shows us that while grace is free, its benefits are not automatically applied to everyone. It requires a response, an awakening, an active engagement. And Christian, though newly free, now bears the burden of compassion, of seeing others trapped in the very spiritual lethargy he himself has just escaped. This is the first taste of what it truly means to live in freedom. Not just being free oneself, but living responsibly in that freedom, aware of the dangers that still lurk, both for oneself and for others, and recognizing the plight of those still in bondage. He continues his journey, leaving these passive, self-imprisoned souls behind, feeling a mix of sadness and renewed resolve. Shortly thereafter, he comes to the foot of a very steep and difficult hill, so formidably steep and challenging that it was aptly named Hill Difficulty. And at the bottom of it, there was a refreshing spring of water, a welcome respite for weary travelers. Beyond this spring, however, two other ways branched off, one called danger and the other destruction. Christian, remembering Evangelist's stern warning to always keep to the straight and narrow way, knew without a doubt that he had to ascend Hill Difficulty. There was no easy bypass. This is a crucial, symbolic moment in the pilgrim's journey. The burden of sin is gone. Yes, a profound relief, but the path ahead is not magically flat and easy. Far from it. Hill Difficulty represents the hard work, the sustained discipline, the persistent effort required to maintain newfound spiritual freedom and to grow in grace. It's the stark reality that while salvation is a magnificent gift, sanctification, the lifelong process of becoming more like Christ, is a journey that demands unwavering perseverance. It's the daily, often unglamorous, effort of cultivating a consistent prayer life, of diligently studying the Word, of actively resisting temptation, of serving others, of cultivating virtues like patience and humility. It's not a passive state. It's an active, ongoing ascent that requires intentionality and grit. Bunyan describes Christian beginning to run up the hill, eager to make progress. But as he ran, he stumbled and fell 3 times because of the sheer steepness of the ascent. It's a powerful, relatable image of struggle. Even with the burden of sin gone, even with the mark of forgiveness upon his brow, the path is arduous. There will be stumbles, falls, moments of exhaustion, moments where our resolve falters. This reminds us that faith is not just about the mountaintop experiences, the profound revelations and moments of overwhelming release. It's also about the dogged, often unglamorous, daily grind of putting one foot in front of the other, even when the muscles ache, the breath comes hard, and the spirit feels weary. About halfway up this challenging incline, Christian found a pleasant arbor, a comfortable resting place, carefully prepared by the Lord of the Hill himself for the refreshment of weary pilgrims. He sat down there, utterly exhausted but grateful. He pulled out his precious roll, his assurance of salvation, his passport to the celestial city, and read it for comfort, reassuring himself of his forgiven state and his ultimate destination. He also took out his food to eat and refreshed himself physically. But in his weariness, perhaps feeling too secure in this pleasant spot, he soon fell into a deep sleep. And as he slept, his roll, that invaluable token of his journey, slipped out of his hand and fell unnoticed to the ground. When he awoke, refreshed but forgetting his oversight, he quickly pressed on, feeling a renewed sense of urgency. But he hadn't gone far when he was met by 2 men, Timorous and Mistrust, who were running down the hill with expressions of abject terror on their faces. They urgently told Christian that there were 2 chained lions ahead, ferocious, roaring beasts guarding the very path he was taking, and they vehemently urged him to turn back to save himself. Christian, recalling the incredible grace of the cross and his miraculous deliverance, was conflicted. How could they turn back after coming so far? But he was also genuinely afraid to go forward, the fear of the lions palpable in their warning. His faith was severely tested, and he felt utterly alone and vulnerable. It was at this moment, in the depths of his fear, that he suddenly reached for his roll, his assurance, his comfort, and realized with a sickening lurch that it was gone. Oh, the despair, the sudden, crushing realization. To have gained so much, to have experienced such profound grace and liberation, only to lose the very token, the very proof of that grace due to his own carelessness. Overcome with grief and self-reproach, he turned back, his heart heavy, retracing his steps until he found the arbor where he had fallen asleep. There, beneath the bench, was his precious roll, lying almost forgotten. He snatched it up with immense relief, but the time lost, the fear endured, and the sheer carelessness of his nap were sharp, painful lessons. He had allowed momentary comfort and a lapse in diligence to make him forget his spiritual vigilance. This teaches us the vital importance of cherishing and actively guarding our assurance, and that even after great spiritual experiences, our human frailty and propensity for carelessness remain. We must always be watchful. He pressed on again, now with renewed urgency, not just for salvation but for diligence, knowing the sun was setting and the lions still awaited. He finally reached the top of Hill Difficulty, just as darkness began to fall, shrouding the path in shadow. And there truly were the lions, 2 chained lions, indeed, their roars echoing in the twilight, guarding the very entrance to a magnificent house. He was terrified, unsure how to proceed, his courage almost failing him. But then, a watchman named Discretion appeared at the door of the house and called out to him, his voice steady and calm, assuring him that the lions were chained and would not harm him if he kept strictly to the middle of the path. Christian, putting his trust in the watchman's wise words, cautiously, prayerfully, walked between the snarling, roaring beasts and found himself, to his immense relief, safely at the entrance of the house. This house, my friends, is the Palace Beautiful. And what a contrast it is to the steep, lion-guarded ascent he had just endured, having faced the profound physical exertion of the climb, the insidious temptations of spiritual laziness and presumption, the disheartening distractions of fear and doubt, and the terrifying specter of immediate peril. Christian finally arrives at a place of true rest, deep community, and profound spiritual nourishment. It is a haven for the weary soul. The Palace Beautiful represents the church, or more broadly, a vibrant community of true believers where pilgrims can find solace, instruction, and comprehensive preparation for the further, more complex stages of their journey. He was welcomed first by the kind porter, watchful, who guards the entrance, and then by a host of gracious women. Discretion, piety, prudence, and charity, personifications of the very virtues essential to a healthy, thriving spiritual life. These wise and compassionate women welcomed him not just as a transient guest, but as a cherished brother, a fellow traveler on the same arduous path. They sat with him, asking him about his journey, listening patiently to his incredible story. His escape from the city of destruction, his encounters, his deliverance at the cross, his struggles on the hill. They offered words of encouragement, counsel, and profound understanding. Imagine the profound relief after such a strenuous and solitary journey. This is where the individual pilgrim connects with the collective body of Christ, where shared experiences strengthen individual faith, and where wise, loving counsel gently guides the way. It's a place of intentional fellowship, where one's personal journey is not only affirmed but profoundly strengthened by the support, wisdom, and love of others. It's where solitude gives way to solidarity. The Palace Beautiful is not just a place of immediate rest, but also a crucial place of learning and extensive preparation. They showed him the antiquities of the place, records of the Lord's unwavering faithfulness through generations, and stories of countless pilgrims who had gone before him, triumphs and tribulations alike. They took him into the study, a chamber filled with light and wisdom, where he saw ancient books that contained the lineage of the Lord of the Hill, descriptions of his valiant acts throughout history, and powerful predictions of future glories yet to come. These are the sacred scriptures, the living testimonies of faith, the accumulated wisdom of generations of believers, all designed to strengthen his understanding, deepen his resolve, and broaden his perspective beyond his personal struggles. And then, on the following morning, they led him to the most crucial part of his preparation, the armory. In the armory, they brought out all manner of weapons and defensive gear for Christian. A shining sword of the Spirit, a broad shield of faith, a sturdy helmet of salvation, a strong breastplate of righteousness, a belt of truth, and shoes fitted with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Not for battling worldly foes, but for the fierce spiritual warfare that undoubtedly lies ahead on his path. They explained that this armor was forged by the Lord of the Hill himself, specifically for pilgrims on their journey to the celestial city, tailor-made for the battles they would inevitably face. This arming is incredibly significant. Christian found liberation at the cross, a moment of divine grace that removed the burden of his past. But freedom, as we've seen, is not the end of the fight. It is, in fact, the very beginning of a different, more empowered kind of fight. The Palace Beautiful provides the essential tools for that fight. It's a powerful reminder that we are not called to fight in our own meager strength, but are fully equipped by divine provision through the resources found in faith and community. The community of faith strengthens us, teaches us, and metaphorically or spiritually arms us for what is to come. He is now not just free, but prepared. He has moved from a state of burdened ignorance to hopeful liberation, and now to a state of armed readiness, ready to face whatever giants may lie around the next bend. After a few days of much-needed rest, profound nourishment, invaluable instruction, and comprehensive arming, Christian was finally ready to depart. He left the Palace Beautiful not lighter in spirit, for that profound change had happened irrevocably at the cross, but heavier in wisdom, stronger in faith, and fully equipped with the spiritual armor of God. He had learned, through strenuous experience and loving instruction, that the path to the celestial city is marked by both profound, unmerited grace and demanding, persistent discipline, by moments of solitary struggle and the sustaining embrace of supportive community. The true price of freedom, it turns out, is eternal vigilance, persistent effort, unwavering courage, and a humble willingness to be both vulnerable enough to receive grace and prepared enough to fight the good fight. As he steps out, leaving the comfort and wisdom of the palace behind, Christian is now not just a pilgrim seeking escape from judgment, but a seasoned, armed soldier of Christ, ready for the battles, the temptations, and the trials that undoubtedly lie on the path ahead. The journey, far from being over, has just truly begun, with a new depth of understanding, a fortified spirit, and a renewed, sacred sense of purpose. And it is this very purpose, this epic journey towards the ultimate city, that we will continue to explore in our next compelling chapter. Chapter 4, The Battle with Inner Demons and the Shadow of Doubt. Welcome back, fellow pilgrims, to our journey through the timeless allegory of John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress. We've seen Christian shed his burden, escape the slough of despond, and learn some tough lessons in the house of the interpreter. He's found momentary solace and guidance, but as any true journey of self-discovery teaches us, the path forward isn't always upward. Sometimes, it plunges into the deepest, darkest valleys within ourselves. Today, we're diving headfirst into those terrifying depths, confronting our personal demons and grappling with the suffocating shadow of doubt. This is Chapter 4, The Battle with Inner Demons and the Shadow of Doubt. Christian has just left the relative safety and spiritual nourishment of the House Beautiful, armed with the shield of faith and the sword of the Spirit. He's been warned that ahead lies a difficult path, but nothing truly prepares us for the raw, visceral experience of personal confrontation. His first major test comes in the Valley of Humiliation. Now, the very name of this valley suggests a humbling, a stripping away of pride, and that it certainly is. But for Christian, and for us, this valley isn't just a place of quiet reflection on our shortcomings. Oh no, it's the arena for an epic, terrifying confrontation with something truly monstrous. Here, in this ostensibly humble place, Christian encounters Apollyon. Bunyan describes Apollyon as a hideous, winged fiend, covered in scales, with the mouth of a lion, feet of a bear, and smoke and fire issuing from his belly. He's a truly terrifying external manifestation of evil. But for our deep dive today, I want us to interpret this battle with Apollyon not just as a fight with an external devil, but as an intense, profoundly personal battle with our own inner demons. Think about it. What does Apollyon represent in your life? Is he the insidious voice of your ego, whispering doubts and inflating your self-importance, tempting you to abandon your path for an easier, more self-serving one? Is he the crushing weight of past sins, haunting your every step, trying to convince you that you're beyond redemption, that your progress is a sham? Perhaps Apollyon embodies the deep, festering shame that you carry, a core inner flaw that you believe defines you, a secret wound that you fear will never heal. This isn't just about bad habits. This is about the fundamental parts of ourselves that we struggle with, the parts we wish we could excise entirely. Imagine Christian, standing alone in that valley, facing a being that spews accusations and temptations, reminding him of every misstep, every moment of weakness. You fell into the slough of despond. You were almost tempted to turn back by worldly wise men. You're a hypocrite. Apollyon taunts him, trying to break his spirit, to make him give up. This is precisely what our inner critics do, isn't it? They dredge up every mistake, every perceived failure, every awkward moment, and amplify them until they become deafening. They tell us we're not good enough, not strong enough, not worthy enough. The fight is brutal. Christian is wounded, nearly overcome. Apollyon casts fiery darts, symbolizing the burning temptations and accusations that threaten to consume Christian's resolve. At one point, Apollyon even wounds Christian in his head, hand, and foot, striking at his thoughts, his actions, and his very ability to stand firm. This speaks volumes about how deeply these inner battles can penetrate, affecting our mind, our capacity to work and create, and our foundation. It's a struggle for survival, not just of the body, but of the soul, of identity. Bunyan emphasizes Christian's exhaustion, his near defeat. He falls, almost succumbing. But just when it seems all is lost, Christian remembers his sword, the sword of the Spirit, the Word of God, yes, but in our interpretation, it's also his conviction, his self-belief, his fundamental purpose. He finds a burst of renewed strength, crying out, "Rejoice not against me, O mine enemy, when I fall I shall arise." And with that he drives Apollyon back, wounding him mortally. The demon retreats for a time. This victory over Apollyon is a powerful reminder that while these inner battles are terrifying and exhausting, they are not insurmountable. We can, and often must, confront our ego, our past, our shame, and our core flaws head-on. It's not about eliminating them entirely perhaps, but about gaining mastery, about refusing to let them define or destroy us. It's about remembering our purpose, reaffirming our values, and finding the internal fortitude to push back against the voices that tell us to quit. After such a battle, Christian is utterly spent, but he's alive, and he's learned an invaluable lesson about his own resilience. But the journey doesn't allow for much rest. From the fires of the Valley of Humiliation, Christian soon finds himself plunging into an even deeper, more terrifying abyss, the Valley of the Shadow of Death. Now, many people hear this phrase and immediately think of a literal fear of dying, a contemplation of mortality. And yes, that is certainly an aspect, but Bunyan's description and our contemporary experience urges us to explore this valley not just as a fear of physical death, but as a period of profound existential dread, spiritual darkness, and overwhelming anxiety where one feels utterly, terrifyingly alone. Imagine, if you will, a path so narrow that a deep ditch runs on one side and a perilous quagmire on the other. Above it all hangs a perpetual darkness, so thick that Christian cannot see his hand before his face. The air is filled with dreadful noises, doleful voices, fearful howlings, shriekings, and groanings of people in misery. These aren't just external sounds. They are the echoes of our deepest fears, the cacophony of an unraveling mind. This isn't just a spooky place. It's a terrifying psychological landscape. This valley represents those dark nights of the soul that many of us experience. It's not just feeling sad. It's the oppressive weight of depression, the paralyzing grip of anxiety, the kind that makes your chest tight and your breath shallow. It's the profound sense of isolation, even when surrounded by others, where you feel completely disconnected from warmth, from hope, from meaning. It's that period when the very foundations of your being seem to crumble, and you question everything you thought you knew about yourself, your purpose, and the universe. In this valley, Christian is assaulted by hobgoblins and foul spirits that whisper blasphemies and terrifying suggestions into his ear. He's so disoriented that he often mistakes their voices for his own thoughts, leading him to believe he is the one thinking these terrible things. How chillingly familiar does that sound to anyone who has struggled with intrusive thoughts, with the insidious internal monologue that seems to turn against you, telling you lies about your worth, your sanity, your future. It's a true spiritual and mental anguish, a crisis of identity where you can no longer trust your own mind. He stumbles, he falls, he cries out, but there seems to be no answer. The darkness is so complete that he cannot even discern the path, let alone find comfort from the heavens. He feels utterly abandoned by God, by fellow pilgrims, by any source of light or hope. This is the profound loneliness of suffering, where your pain feels unique and insurmountable, and the idea of anyone truly understanding feels impossible. It's a terrifying place to be. So, what does Christian do in this absolute desolation? Bunyan tells us Christians' only weapons in this valley are faith and prayer. And oh, how profoundly important this insight is for us. When all external structures fail, when your mind turns against you, when hope is a distant memory, what remains? For Christian, it's a desperate, guttural cry, an act of sheer will to hold onto the smallest sliver of belief. He hears voices speaking blasphemies, but then he also hears the voice of another, the voice of someone else, uttering a prayer of hope and courage. This small sound, this faint glimmer in the oppressive darkness, signifies that he is not entirely alone, even if he cannot see the source. It's a testament to the enduring power of faith, not as a rigid dogma, but as an anchor, a desperate clinging to something beyond the immediate despair. Prayer, in this context, isn't just a ritual. It's a vital lifeline. It's the raw articulation of suffering, a desperate plea for strength, for guidance, for anything to break the silence and the darkness. It's finding the last shred of courage to lift your voice when every fiber of your being wants to curl up and disappear. For those grappling with severe mental or spiritual anguish, the act of prayer, however fragmented or uncertain, can be a profound act of defiance against the encroaching despair. It's the human spirit refusing to be entirely extinguished, finding a way to connect, however tenuously, with something larger than itself. It's the recognition that even in the absolute void, there might still be a whisper of hope, if only you can reach for it. Christian perseveres through the night, guided only by the faint whispers of his faith and the sheer, brutal will to continue. And then, as the first rays of morning light pierce the darkness, the valley begins to yield. The sun rises, and with it, a tangible shift occurs. The path becomes clearer, the noises recede, and the horrors begin to dissipate. This isn't to say the pain magically vanishes, but the intensity of the absolute darkness begins to lessen. The dawn brings a promise that even the longest, darkest night will eventually give way to morning. As Christian emerges from the valley of the shadow of death, weary but unbroken, he doesn't immediately find paradise. The journey continues, but what he does find next is profoundly significant. He meets a new companion, a fellow pilgrim named Faithful. Think about the timing of this meeting. Christian has just endured the most terrifying, isolating experience of his journey so far. He's faced his inner demons, wrestled with existential dread, and walked through a valley of absolute aloneness. And then, just as he's caught his breath, he encounters someone else on the path. This meeting with Faithful is not merely a convenience. It is a profound symbol of the importance of fellowship in overcoming the darkest times. After enduring such profound isolation, the sight of another human being, someone on the same journey, sharing the same struggles, is like a balm for the soul. Faithful becomes a testament to the universal human need for connection. When we are at our lowest, when we feel utterly alone and convinced that no one could possibly understand our particular brand of pain, finding someone who has walked a similar path or is willing to walk with us can be a transformative experience. Faithful doesn't diminish Christian's previous struggles, nor does he offer simplistic solutions. Instead, he offers presence, empathy, and shared experience. He represents the comfort of knowing you're not an anomaly, that your struggles, however unique they feel, are part of the broader human condition. This companionship provides not just practical support, but emotional and spiritual sustenance. It alleviates the crushing weight of loneliness, which is often one of the most debilitating aspects of navigating our personal valleys of shadow. The presence of Faithful allows Christian to process his experiences, to verbalize the horrors he faced, and to hear another perspective. This act of sharing, of bearing witness to each other's journeys, is incredibly healing. It reinforces the idea that while we must face our individual battles, we are not meant to do so in perpetual isolation. The strength found in fellowship, in shared purpose, in simply having someone by your side who understands, cannot be overstated. It's a reminder that even after surviving our deepest nightmares, there is still joy and strength to be found in human connection. So, as we reflect on Christian's harrowing passage through the valley of humiliation and the valley of the shadow of death, what profound lessons can we carry forward? Firstly, the battle with Apollyon teaches us that our most formidable adversaries often reside within. Our ego, our past mistakes, our shame, our inherent flaws, these are the giants we must confront if we are to truly progress. This confrontation is messy, painful, and often humiliating, but it is absolutely essential for growth and self-acceptance. We cannot run from these parts of ourselves. We must face them, understand them, and learn to integrate them or overcome them with renewed determination. Secondly, the Valley of the Shadow of Death vividly illustrates that the darkest times are not always about external threats, but about the terrifying internal landscape of existential dread, spiritual darkness, and overwhelming anxiety. It reminds us that periods of profound mental and spiritual anguish are a very real and often inescapable part of the human experience. These are the moments when our sense of self, our purpose, and our connection to anything beyond ourselves are severely tested. Thirdly, Christians' reliance on faith and prayer in that valley underscores their power as tools for enduring such anguish. Whether you interpret these as religious acts or as deep psychological anchors, as acts of desperate hope, of clinging to an unseen strength, of finding a voice even when silenced by despair, they represent our capacity to find internal resilience when all else fails. They are the defiant whisper in the face of an existential scream. And finally, the timely arrival of Faithful after Christian's darkest hour highlights the indispensable importance of fellowship. We are social beings, and while self-reliance is crucial, true strength often comes from shared burdens, from empathy, and from the knowledge that we are not alone on this arduous pilgrimage. Finding companions who understand, who listen, and who walk alongside us can turn an unbearable journey into a shared adventure, infusing it with renewed hope and purpose. As Christian continues his journey with Faithful, he's not just moving forward physically, he's carrying the scars and the wisdom gleaned from these dark valleys. He's a changed pilgrim, more resilient, more humble, and more appreciative of the light and companionship he now possesses. These valleys didn't break him. They forged him, strengthening his resolve and deepening his understanding of himself and the world. And so it can be for us, as we face our own inner demons and walk through our personal shadows of doubt. Join me next time as Christian and Faithful continue their journey, facing new challenges and discovering more about the nature of truth and conviction. Thank you for walking this path with me. Chapter 5, The Trial of a Material World and the Prison of Despair. All right, my friends, welcome back to our journey through the timeless allegory of John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress. We've seen Christian shed his burden, grapple with theological complexities, and overcome the initial doubts and dangers of his spiritual path. He's been joined by Faithful, a steadfast companion, and together they've faced internal struggles and external deceptions. But now, their pilgrimage takes a dramatic, even brutal turn, as they confront not just individual temptations, but the full, overwhelming force of the world system itself, followed by the crushing weight of their own despair. Our fifth chapter, The Trial of a Material World and the Prison of Despair, plunges us into the heart of what it means to live a life of conviction in a society that often finds such conviction not just irrelevant, but downright offensive. Christian and Faithful, weary but resolute, arrive at a place unlike any they've encountered before, Vanity Fair. Imagine, if you will, not just a market but an entire city, a sprawling metropolis built around one eternal, ceaseless event, a fair, always in full swing, where every conceivable thing for human desire and gratification is on offer. From houses, lands, trades, and places, to honors, preferments, titles, countries, kingdoms, pleasures, delights of all sorts, to wives, husbands, children, masters, servants, lives, blood, bodies, souls, silver, gold, pearls, precious stones, and whatnot. Everything is for sale, and the fair itself has been running for thousands of years, founded on ancient custom, always attracting pilgrims and ensnaring them. Bunyan's Vanity Fair is an astonishingly prescient metaphor, isn't it? It perfectly captures the essence of modern consumer culture, the relentless churn of materialism that defines so much of our waking lives. Think of it. The constant bombardment of advertising, the ever-present pressure to acquire the latest gadget, the trendiest fashion, the most desirable experience. Our society often feels like one giant, never-ending fair, where our worth is too often measured by what we own, what we consume, what we display. It's the endless scroll of social media, showcasing curated lives and aspirational possessions. It's the Black Friday frenzy, the must-have items, the FOMO, the fear of missing out, that drives us to participate, to buy, to belong. Vanity Fair isn't just about things. It's also about social pressures. It sells opinions, reputations, status. It dictates what's cool, what's acceptable, what's in. And if you don't conform, if you don't buy into its values, if your priorities lie elsewhere, you become an anomaly, an outsider. A society steeped in this kind of materialism inevitably becomes hostile to genuine spiritual values. Why? Because true spiritual values often demand sacrifice, humility, detachment from worldly goods, and a focus on the unseen. These are antithetical to the very spirit of Vanity Fair, which celebrates acquisition, self-gratification, and the tangible. When Christian and faithful enter this bustling, dazzling marketplace, they are immediately noticeable. They are dressed differently in their pilgrim's garb, and, more importantly, they don't speak the language of the fair. They don't express interest in its wares. When asked what they want to buy, they simply reply, "We buy the truth." This simple statement, so profound, so pure, is met with ridicule, anger, and suspicion. They are accused of being madmen, seditious troublemakers, even aliens who have come to disrupt their way of life. This is the price of standing out, of holding fast to convictions that challenge the prevailing norms. Their refusal to conform, their visible difference, sparks outrage. They are mocked, abused, dragged through the streets, and eventually put on trial. And this trial, my friends, is a chilling portrayal of injustice. The judge, Lord Hategood, is biased from the start. The witnesses, envy, superstition, and pickthank, are perjurers, their testimonies laced with lies and distortions. Faithful, despite his eloquent defense, is condemned because he has dared to challenge the fair's legitimacy, dared to suggest that there is a higher truth than what is bought and sold there. The martyrdom of Faithful is one of the most poignant and powerful moments in The Pilgrim's Progress. He is beaten, stoned, stabbed, and finally burned at the stake. His death is gruesome, a brutal testament to the price one sometimes pays for holding onto one's convictions against the grain of society. It's a stark reminder that the world, in its pursuit of its own values, can be utterly merciless to those who dare to propose an alternative. Think about the countless individuals throughout history, and even today, who have faced persecution, ridicule, and even death for their beliefs. From early Christian martyrs to modern-day activists, whistleblowers, or simply those who speak an unpopular truth, the story of Faithful resonates deeply, challenges us to ask, what are we willing to pay for our convictions? Are we willing to be unpopular, to be ostracized, to suffer loss, for the sake of what we believe is true and right? It's easy to stand firm when everyone else agrees, but true faith and conviction are tested when the world turns against you. Despite the profound loss of Faithful, his sacrifice is not in vain. As he ascends to glory, a new pilgrim, hopeful, emerges from the crowd, inspired by Faithful's courage and witness. Hopeful joins Christian, proving that even in the darkest moments, faith can be kindled in the hearts of others. Christian and hopeful continue their journey, having learned a painful but crucial lesson about the world. But their trials are far from over. In fact, what comes next is perhaps even more terrifying because it is an internal foe, a spiritual relapse that threatens to consume them entirely. One day, after having traveled a long way, they become weary. Seeing a convenient-looking bypath running parallel to their narrow way, they decide to take it, believing it will be easier and smoother. This seemingly small deviation, this moment of seeking an easier route, of straying from the prescribed path, proves to be catastrophic. It's a moment many of us can relate to, that subtle compromise, that slight shift off course, thinking we know better or simply looking for comfort. This bypath leads them into a field called Bypath Meadow, where a sudden, thick fog descends. Lost and disoriented, they stumble into the domain of the formidable giant Despair, who lives in the dreaded Doubting Castle. And here, my friends, Bunyan masterfully portrays the insidious, crippling grip of profound hopelessness. Giant Despair isn't just a literal giant. He is the embodiment of that overwhelming, crushing feeling that all is lost, that there is no way out, no future, no hope. And Doubting Castle? It is the prison of the mind, the dark, cold, damp, and isolated cell where despair locks us away. It's the psychological space where self-doubt gnaws at us, where our past failures are magnified, and our future seems utterly bleak. How often in our own lives do we find ourselves in Doubting Castle? Perhaps we've strayed from our core values, made a poor decision, or simply faced a series of setbacks that have chipped away at our resilience. The giant Despair, often aided by his equally cruel wife, Diffidence, representing self-distrust and lack of confidence, begins to torment Christian and hopeful. He beats them, starves them, denies them light, and constantly whispers that they should end their own lives. He tells them there's no escape, no forgiveness, no purpose left for them. This portrayal of despair is incredibly powerful because it captures the essence of deep depression and suicidal ideation. It's the feeling of being trapped, of having forgotten who you are and what you believe, of being convinced that you are beyond redemption or help. The physical torment in the castle, the beatings, the lack of food and water, mirrors the emotional and spiritual starvation that occurs when hope is extinguished. The constant suggestion to end their misery, to choose death, is the ultimate temptation of despair, a whisper that seeks to silence all possibility of recovery. For days, they languish in this terrible prison, their spirits broken, their hope all but gone. They regret leaving the path, but the regret only deepens their sense of hopelessness. It's a vicious cycle. Christian, in particular, is overcome with guilt and self-reproach, remembering how he warned others about bypaths and now finds himself trapped. But then, a turning point. On the Sabbath night, after days of agonizing despair, Christian suddenly remembers something. He remembers that he carries a key, a very special key. He exclaims, "What a fool I am, to lie in this stinking dungeon, when I may as well be at liberty. I have a key in my bosom called promise, that will, I am persuaded, open any lock in Doubting Castle." This, my friends, is the miraculous rediscovery of hope, the sudden, brilliant flash of memory that can pierce the deepest gloom. The key of promise represents the core beliefs, the foundational truths, the divine assurances that we often possess but forget in our darkest hours. It's the rediscovery of God's unchanging promises, the unwavering conviction that grace is available, that redemption is real, that even when we stray, the path back is open. It's the realization that the prison we are in, the despair that binds us, is often one of our own making, constructed by our forgotten truths and surrendered hope. With this key, Christian begins to unlock the doors of Doubting Castle. The dungeon door, the courtyard door, the iron gate, one by one, they yield to the key of promise. It's not an instant magical solution. It's a process. It takes faith, effort, and the courage to act on that rediscovered hope. The sounds of the locks turning, of the doors groaning open, are symbolic of the gradual breaking down of the walls of despair within us. They escape, and as they do, giant despair is seized with a convulsion, unable to pursue them. This suggests that despair, once challenged by genuine hope and belief, loses its power. They flee, reaching the king's highway once more, and at the entry of the bypath, they erect a pillar with a warning. Over this stile is the way to Doubting Castle, which is kept by Giant Despair, who despiseth the king of the celestial country, and seeks to destroy his holy pilgrims. A crucial lesson, etched in stone, for all who follow. So, in these two profoundly challenging episodes, Vanity Fair and Doubting Castle, Bunyan presents us with a comprehensive look at the trials of the pilgrim. Vanity Fair represents the external persecution, the pressures and hostilities of a world diametrically opposed to genuine spiritual values, often leading to martyrdom and sacrifice for one's convictions. Doubting Castle, on the other hand, symbolizes the internal collapse, the relapse into crippling hopelessness, often triggered by straying from the path of faith and vigilance. We see that the journey isn't just about avoiding obvious evils, but also about navigating the seductive allure of the world and the treacherous terrain of our own minds. We must be prepared to face scorn and opposition for our beliefs, and we must be ever vigilant against the subtle temptations that lead us off course, for they can land us in a prison of despair. But the enduring message is one of hope. Even in the deepest dungeons of doubt, even when we feel utterly lost and without recourse, the key of promise, the unwavering truths and assurances we hold in our hearts, remains our ultimate means of escape. It reminds us that our faith, our core beliefs, and the promises of a higher power are not just abstract concepts, but tangible tools that can unlock the chains of our own despair and set us free. As Christian and Hopeful continue, bruised but renewed, we, the readers, are left to ponder the lessons of the material world and the prison of the mind. How do we navigate our own Vanity Fairs? How do we safeguard ourselves against the lure of bypath meadow? And how do we remember that precious key of promise when the giant despair of our lives threatens to overwhelm us? Join me next time, as Christian and Hopeful face new challenges and continue their arduous but ultimately rewarding journey toward the Celestial City. Thank you for walking this path with me. Until then, keep your key close. Chapter 6, The Final Climb and the Gates of Eternity. The journey has been long, hasn't it? From the murky depths of the Slough of Despond to the fiery trials of the Valley of the Shadow of Death, and through the dazzling yet deceptive chaos of Vanity Fair, Christian has navigated a labyrinth of challenges that would break the spirits of most. But now, as we draw closer to the culmination of this epic pilgrimage, we arrive at a place of profound beauty, serene contemplation, and even greater wisdom, the Delectable Mountains. Imagine, for a moment, the sheer physical and spiritual relief. After the arduous climb, the constant vigilance against lurking dangers, the wearying confrontations with temptation and despair, Christian and his steadfast companion, Hopeful, begin their ascent. With every upward step, the air grows crisper, cleaner, carrying with it the scent of wild herbs and the promise of peace. The oppressive mists and the shadows of the lower valleys recede below them, unfolding into a vast panorama. As they gain altitude, the burdens that seemed so heavy just moments before feel lighter, almost dissolved by the expansive views. These aren't merely pretty hills. They are, as Bunyan so aptly named them, delectable. They are delightful not just to the physical eye, but profoundly soothing to the soul, a balm after so much struggle. This stage of the journey, for me, always represents a period of mature perspective, a time when the dust settles and clarity emerges. It's that invaluable moment in life when you've put in the grueling work, faced down your personal giants, wrestled with your inner demons, and now you get to climb a little higher, take a deep breath, and look back at the winding, often treacherous, path you've traversed. From these magnificent peaks, Christian can actually see, laid out beneath him like an intricate map, the very dangers he overcame, the treacherous valleys he survived, the distant city he left behind, and even shimmering faintly on the far horizon, a tantalizing, almost dreamlike glimpse of the Celestial City itself. It's a moment of profound revelation, where the narrative of his past struggles suddenly clicks into place, revealing a tapestry woven with purpose and divine intervention. Here, in this elevated sanctuary, Christian and Hopeful meet the shepherds, allegorical figures named Knowledge, Experience, Watchful, and Sincere. These aren't just random guides offering directions. They are the embodiment of seasoned wisdom, the very essence of spiritual maturity. They don't merely point the way forward. They offer invaluable perspective on the journey itself. With serene patience, they lead Christian to a vantage point from which he can review the entire pilgrimage. They show him, with stern but loving counsel, the byways that lead to destruction, the false paths cunningly disguised as shortcuts, and the terrifying chasm where careless pilgrims have fallen. More importantly, and with a sense of hopeful anticipation, they give him a visual aid, a powerful spyglass, through which he can discern the very gates of the celestial city, albeit dimly, in the far distance. This moment is so incredibly powerful because it's not just about being told what to do or where to go. It's about seeing the bigger picture, comprehending the grand design. It's about gaining an overarching clarity after enduring so much confusion, doubt, and spiritual fog. Think about it in your own life. Haven't there been those rare, pivotal moments when you've gone through an intensely difficult period, perhaps a personal crisis or a professional setback, and then, after coming out the other side, looking back, suddenly it all makes sense? You see how each challenge, each apparent failure, each unexpected detour was actually preparing you for something else entirely, building a resilience you never knew you possessed, sharpening skills you never realized you needed. The Delectable Mountains are that profound moment of clarity, that serene height from which you can finally understand the purpose of your struggles, the meaning behind your trials. You gain a deep sense of inner peace, a quiet, unshakable confidence that the end is indeed in sight, and that every step, no matter how painful, was leading you precisely where you needed to be. They even show Christian a dark, cavernous doorway in the side of a hill, a chilling reminder of those who strayed, and a monument with a chilling inscription, marking the fate of those who succumbed to despair. These warnings, delivered with the gentle authority of experience, solidify Christian's resolve and deepen his gratitude for the path he has stayed on. But even with such profound wisdom and a glimpse of the promised land, the journey isn't truly over. There remains one final, formidable, and utterly inescapable hurdle that stands between Christian and his ultimate, glorious goal. After the peace of the Delectable Mountains, after gaining this invaluable, almost ethereal perspective, Bunyan, with his masterful command of allegory, confronts Christian, and indeed all of us, with the ultimate test, the river of death. This isn't just any river. It's an abyss, a terrifying, swirling expanse of dark, deep waters. It's described in Bunyan's evocative prose as having no bridge, no ford, no convenient stepping stones. And critically, it must be crossed alone. The very thought of it sends a chill down Christian's spine, a primal terror that momentarily eclipses even the vision of the celestial city. Imagine yourself standing on that bank, peering into the ominous, black waters, hearing their ceaseless roar, knowing with absolute certainty that this is it. This is the final passage. The terror of the unknown, the primal fear of letting go of life as you know it, of losing all earthly control, washes over him with an almost physical force. For Christian, the river's depth and its terrifying current seem to depend entirely on the strength and steadfastness of his faith. At times, overwhelmed by doubt and the heavy memory of his past failings, he feels himself sinking into the murky depths, consumed by despair, the cumulative weight of his perceived sins threatening to drag him down into an endless oblivion. Hopeful, ever true to his name, is there on the bank, a beacon of encouragement, constantly reminding Christian of God's boundless promises, shouting words of comfort and divine assurance. But even hopeful, with all his unwavering optimism, cannot cross for Christian. This is unequivocally a solitary journey. Each pilgrim must navigate these final waters by themselves. And isn't that just like life itself? No matter how many people love us fiercely, how many cherished companions walk alongside us through life's myriad paths, there are some battles, some profound transitions we must face entirely on our own. The river of death, to me, is the ultimate surrender, the final act of letting go. It's the moment we must release everything we've accumulated, our material possessions, our social standing, our carefully constructed identities, even our deepest fears and attachments. It represents the unyielding acceptance of our own mortality, the letting go of the ego that desperately clings to control, and the complete, unqualified trust in something far greater and more encompassing than ourselves, whatever that something may be for you, be it God, the universe, an ultimate truth, or simply the unknown. It's the final purification, a profound washing away of all earthly attachments, all remnants of the former self. It is terrifying, yes, an experience that challenges the very core of one's being, but it is also utterly unavoidable if one is to reach the other side. And it is in this deepest moment of vulnerability, when Christian feels he is truly at his lowest ebb, on the brink of being consumed by the dark currents, that the promises he's held onto throughout his arduous journey become his only lifeline, his only anchor. With a surge of renewed faith, his feet miraculously find purchase, the terrifying waters recede, and with hopeful still cheering him on from the now visible opposite bank, he emerges, gasping for breath but ultimately victorious, onto the shore of the promised land. And then, as if an immense curtain is dramatically drawn back to reveal an unimaginable, breathtaking glory, they behold it. The celestial city. Imagine the trumpets, not just sounding from the pages of Bunyan's prose, but echoing with an ecstatic crescendo in your very soul, reverberating through the very fabric of existence. Imagine a light, so blindingly brilliant it outshines 1,000 earthly suns, emanating from gates made not just of pearl, but of a luminous, otherworldly essence. Imagine walking, not just entering, but being escorted by shining ones, by celestial beings cloaked in effulgent light, who greet Christian and hopeful not with mere welcomes, but with shouts of unspeakable joy, and hymns of triumphant praise that seem to carry the very music of the spheres. The city isn't merely beautiful. It's vibrant, alive with pure, unadulterated bliss, a divine ecstasy that transcends human comprehension. The streets are paved with what Bunyan describes as pure gold, not as a symbol of earthly wealth or material gain, but as an emblem of divine purity, incorruptibility, and supreme value. They are not merely dressed in new clothes. They are given shining garments, symbols of their utterly transformed, perfected state, cleansed of all imperfection and worldly stain. And then, with utmost reverence and joy, they are brought before the King himself. All burdens, all sorrows, all tears, all vestiges of earthly suffering are not just forgotten, but are eternally wiped away. There is no more pain, no more fear, no more uncertainty, only an everlasting peace, an unceasing joy, and a sense of belonging that is deeper and more profound than anything ever experienced in the earthly realm. The air itself seems to hum with an ethereal harmony, a symphony of praise and adoration. They join a choir of countless saints and angels, their voices blending into a cosmic chorus, celebrating the ultimate victory over sin, death, and despair. Bunyan's vivid description of the celestial city is, of course, deeply rooted in his profound Christian faith, depicting salvation, eternal life in heaven, and the ultimate union with God. But for those of us who might interpret this timeless allegory through a broader, more universal lens, the celestial city represents the ultimate achievement of the journey's goal, whatever that may be for each individual. It could be enlightenment, a state of profound self-realization where all illusions fall away, a complete and harmonious integration of one's true, authentic self with the divine, or the magnificent culmination of a life lived with unwavering purpose, integrity, and profound compassion. It's that transcendent moment when all the fragmented pieces of existence finally coalesce, and you achieve a state of absolute wholeness, of perfect belonging, of being utterly and irrevocably at peace with who you are, where you are, and your place in the grand cosmic scheme. It's the ultimate homecoming, the return to a source of infinite love and acceptance. It's the deserved reward for every arduous step, every painful stumble, every moment of unwavering faith, and every courageous act throughout the long, arduous, and transformative progress. As Christian and hopeful, now glorified, enter through those magnificent pearly gates, the gates close behind them, not with a sense of exclusion to shut others out, but rather to signify the profound and irreversible completion of their journey, the absolute and glorious finality of their transformation. They have arrived, their pilgrimage is over, and their eternal reward has begun. And reflecting on this entire epic journey, from the wretched squalor of the city of destruction to the unparalleled splendor of the celestial city, it becomes abundantly, undeniably clear that while the destination is glorious beyond measure, the true triumph, the profound, resonant magic of the Pilgrim's Progress, lies not just in the destination, but most profoundly in the progress itself. It's not merely about reaching the celestial city. It's about who Christian becomes on the way. Every single challenge he faced, from the cunning sophistry of worldly wise men, the debilitating despair in the slough, the terrifying combat with the demon Apollyon, the seductive, blinding allure of Vanity Fair, to the oppressive despair inflicted by the giants of Doubting Castle, each one, without exception, chipped away at his old, flawed self, revealing a stronger, more resilient, more faithful, and ultimately, more Christ-like individual beneath. Every companion he encountered, from the ill-fated faithful to the steadfast hopeful, offered a unique mirror reflecting his own struggles and growth, a valuable lesson learned, a moment of shared humanity that forged deeper bonds of understanding and empathy. The journey didn't just move him geographically. It refined him spiritually, purified his intentions, and ultimately transformed him from a burdened, fear-ridden soul desperately fleeing destruction into a triumphant, radiant pilgrim entering eternity. This, my friends, is the timeless, universal wisdom embedded in Bunyan's enduring allegory for each of us. Our lives are not merely a linear series of events leading to some distant, future goal, be it retirement, a personal achievement, or a spiritual awakening. They are, in their very essence, a continuous, dynamic process of growth, learning, adaptation, and profound transformation. The progress is, in fact, the entire point. It's the messy, beautiful, sometimes terrifying, sometimes exhilarating, often confusing, but always evolving journey of becoming. The destination, whatever we conceive it to be, whether it's spiritual enlightenment, a deep sense of purpose, a truly fulfilled life, or simply an unshakable, abiding peace, is not something you arrive at unchanged. It is reached by someone utterly, profoundly, and irrevocably changed by the journey itself. The pilgrim who begins the journey is never the same as the pilgrim who completes it. The trials shape us, the moments of joy uplift us, the companionship sustains us, and the solitude strengthens us. So, as we bring this particular chapter to a close, and indeed, our humble exploration of the Pilgrim's Progress to its conclusion, remember Christian's journey. Remember his raw courage, his moments of agonizing doubt, his unyielding resilience, and his ultimate, glorious triumph. And perhaps, with these insights now illuminated, look at your own path, the road you are on right now, with fresh, discerning eyes. What mountains are you currently climbing, both literally and metaphorically, that test your resolve and offer new vistas of understanding? What metaphorical rivers are you preparing to cross, forcing you to face your deepest fears and surrender the illusion of control? And how is every single step, every decision, every interaction, every challenge, every moment of both light and shadow, shaping the magnificent, complex person you are becoming, the true self that is slowly, beautifully, powerfully emerging from within? The progress, my friends, is everything. It is the very essence of our human experience, the unfolding narrative of our souls, the profound meaning we find in the continuous evolution of our lives. Thank you for joining me on this incredible, introspective journey through John Bunyan's enduring masterpiece. It has truly been a privilege to share these reflections, these timeless truths, with you. Until next time, may your own progress be filled with purpose and profound discovery. Keep moving forward, one step at a time. Alright, so we've journeyed with Christian, haven't we? We've walked alongside him through the perilous landscapes of John Bunyan's incredible imagination, witnessing his profound struggles, celebrating his hard-won triumphs, and uncovering the deep allegories woven into every single step of his epic path. It's a story that, on the surface, feels like a grand adventure from another time, a historical relic of faith and folklore. But here's the beautiful, potent truth of it. The Pilgrim's Progress isn't merely a fascinating tale penned centuries ago. It is, at its heart, a timeless, universally applicable blueprint for personal transformation, a surprisingly relevant guide for anyone alive today who feels that undeniable, inner tug towards something more, something profoundly better in their own existence. And that, my friends, is exactly where we're headed with this next section. My aim, my heartfelt intention with your 7-day Pilgrim's Action Plan, is to help you, right here, right now, translate Christian's allegorical, spiritual quest into a practical, tangible, week-long journey you can not only begin but truly integrate into your daily life. This isn't about literally packing a bag and embarking on some grand, physical pilgrimage. No, it's about a far more profound journey. An internal expedition, a conscious, courageous decision to turn inwards, to meticulously examine the landscape of your own life, to bravely identify what exactly is holding you back, and then, with unwavering resolve, to intentionally chart a course towards your own personal celestial city, whatever that magnificent vision looks like for you. Think of this week not as a rigid set of rules, but as an invitation. An invitation to a spiritual workout, perhaps, a mental and emotional detox, a meticulously crafted roadmap for initiating meaningful, sustainable progress, day by day. It's a challenge, absolutely, make no mistake. Personal growth often is, but it's a challenge imbued with the promise of deep, lasting rewards. It's about shedding the old, embracing the new, and stepping into the person you're truly meant to be. Are you feeling that resonance? That quiet stirring of readiness? Good, because with that spirit, let's wholeheartedly dive in. Day 1 and 2. Identify your burden and city of destruction. Cast your mind back to the very opening of Bunyan's narrative. We meet Christian, heavy-laden, quite literally weighed down by a massive, visible burden on his back. This burden, as we discussed, is a potent symbol of his sin, his guilt, his profound sense of unworthiness and anxiety. He resides, moreover, in the ominous city of destruction, a place explicitly destined for ruin, where he experiences a deep-seated dissatisfaction, a gnawing fear about his future, and an undeniable urge to escape. For our first 2 days together on this personal pilgrimage, your crucial foundational task is to honestly, compassionately, yet with immense courage, gaze inward at your own life and meticulously identify your burden and your city of destruction. What is this burden that you, perhaps unknowingly, carry? What are the anxieties that keep you up at night? The gnawing regrets that whisper in your ear? The unfulfilled expectations that create a persistent ache? Are there habits, subtle or overt, that feel like dead weights? Or perhaps it's emotional baggage accumulated over years that you've simply grown accustomed to carrying? This burden could manifest as a pervasive feeling of inadequacy, that persistent inner critic. It might be a chronic procrastination habit that stifles your potential, unresolved conflict with a loved one that saps your energy, the relentless stress of financial insecurity, or even just a vague, unsettling sense of unease, a lack of clear direction in your life. The vital thing here is, do not shy away from these. Do not minimize them. Christian couldn't even begin his transformative journey until he fully and completely acknowledged the crushing weight of his burden. You cannot move forward until you see what's truly holding you back. And then, let's consider your city of destruction. Again, this isn't necessarily a literal geographic location. Instead, it represents those pervasive aspects of your current life that feel profoundly unfulfilling, demonstrably unsustainable, or even overtly detrimental to your overall well-being and genuine growth. Is it a job that consistently drains your spirit, leaving you hollow at the end of each day? A relationship or a pattern of relating that feels toxic, depleting, or stagnant? A persistent pattern of thought or behavior, perhaps self-sabotage, chronic negativity, or constant comparison, that consistently keeps you stuck in a loop of discontent? Or is it simply a daily routine, a lifestyle, that leaves you feeling empty, uninspired, and disconnected from your true self? It's the status quo that, deep down in your quietest moments, you know absolutely isn't serving your highest potential. It's the comfort zone that has become a cage. Here is your concrete action plan for these 2 pivotal days. Journal. Find a quiet, undisturbed space, perhaps a corner of your home, a park bench, or even just your bed before the day begins or ends. Grab a pen and paper, or open a digital document on your device, and simply write. The absolute key here is to write without filtering, without judgment, without editing yourself. Ask yourself these powerful, probing questions. What truly, deeply weighs me down right now? And what specific aspects of my life, if I'm brutally, uncompromisingly honest with myself, feel like they're leading me towards an unsatisfying, unfulfilling conclusion? Write down every thought, every feeling, every memory that bubbles to the surface. Allow yourself to explore the raw emotions associated with these burdens and these destructive patterns. The immediate goal isn't to instantly solve them or fix them. That comes later. The initial, vital goal is simply to acknowledge them, to name them, to give them form. This profound act of identification, this brave confrontation with your inner landscape, is the crucial, non-negotiable first step on any journey of authentic progress. It's the powerful moment you stop pretending everything is just fine and courageously begin facing what truly is. Give yourself the radical permission to be completely vulnerable, completely open with yourself over these 2 profound days. This is where your own progress truly begins. Day 3, find your evangelist. Once Christian, with his burden heavy on his back, grasped the profound gravity of his situation and the imminent danger of his city of destruction. What happened? A pivotal figure, a wise and earnest guide named Evangelist, appeared. This wasn't by chance. Christian was actively seeking direction, crying out for guidance. Evangelist didn't offer a magical fix, but he did something equally powerful. He pointed Christian towards a shining light, towards a specific gate, and gave him clear, actionable directions to the wicket gate, the true entrance to his new, transformative path. On your day 3, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to find your own evangelist. Who or what is going to provide that much-needed wisdom and clear guidance for your unique journey? In our wonderfully complex modern world, an evangelist isn't necessarily a single person knocking on your door, though it certainly could be. Can take many forms. Perhaps it's a book, one that has profoundly impacted you in the past, or one that you've been meaning to dive into, sensing its potential wisdom. It could be a specific podcast or a YouTube channel, like this one perhaps, that consistently offers insightful perspectives, practical advice, and genuine spiritual or personal guidance. It might be a trusted mentor, a spiritual teacher whose insights resonate deeply, a compassionate therapist who helps you navigate your inner world, or even a friend whose wisdom and perspective you deeply respect and admire. It could even be a specific philosophy you've been exploring, a spiritual text that speaks to your soul, or an online course you've been considering that promises to unlock new skills or understandings. Your powerful action for today is to intentionally seek out a source of wisdom that genuinely resonates with the specific burdens and dissatisfactions you so bravely identified on days 1 and 2. The key word here is intentionality. Don't just passively scroll or skim. Actively engage. If it's a book, dedicate a focused block of time to read a chapter, taking notes, asking questions of the text, allowing its words to truly sink in. If it's a podcast, listen to an episode with an open mind and heart, pausing to reflect, perhaps even jotting down key insights. If it's a mentor, make that genuine effort to reach out, to schedule a brief conversation, to humbly ask for their advice on a specific challenge you're facing. The essence here is that you're not simply waiting for wisdom to magically find you. You are actively, proactively pursuing it. You are intentionally opening yourself up to guidance, to a fresh perspective that can illuminate the crucial next step on your path, just as evangelists so clearly illuminated Christians. This day is about choosing to be a student of your own life, to cultivate an openness to learning, and to consciously allow external wisdom to deeply inform and enrich your vital internal journey. Let your evangelist speak to you today. Day 4. Face a hill difficulty. Christian's journey, as we know, was certainly no stroll through a meadow. After a relatively smooth, albeit brief, start, he very soon encounters the formidable hill difficulty, a steep, arduous, and undeniably challenging climb that tests his physical endurance, his mental fortitude, and his unwavering resolve. On your day 4, my friend, it's time for you to bravely face your own hill difficulty. What is that small, meaningful challenge you've been consciously or unconsciously avoiding? I'm not talking about a monumental, life-overhauling endeavor here. We're looking for something specific, something tangible, and perhaps just a little bit uncomfortable that, deep down would significantly contribute to your personal growth or your overall well-being if you just finally tackled it head-on. This isn't about achieving instant perfection. It's profoundly about cultivating discipline, demonstrating self-efficacy, and taking a deliberate, courageous step out of your accustomed comfort zone. Perhaps it's that difficult, emotionally charged conversation you've been putting off with a family member, a close friend, or a colleague, the one that keeps replaying in your mind. Maybe it's dedicating a focused 15 or 20 minutes to finally organizing that perpetually cluttered corner of your home, your desk, or your digital files. It could be committing to a short, invigorating workout you've been consistently procrastinating on, or sitting down to practice mindfulness or meditate for just 5 minutes, even if your mind feels like a chaotic circus tent right now. It might be finally opening that online course you eagerly signed up for but haven't touched, or starting that creative project you've been dreaming about but find overwhelming. Your clear, actionable task for today: choose one of these small but personally significant challenges. And then, here's the crucial part: without overthinking it, without allowing procrastination to creep back in, do it. Just for today. The profound purpose here is multifaceted. It's to practice self-discipline, to consciously build your capacity for discomfort, and most powerfully, to prove to yourself unequivocally that you can face something challenging and emerge from it stronger, more capable, and more confident. It's about building an unstoppable momentum, showing yourself, through direct experience, that you are absolutely capable of overcoming obstacles, even if they initially feel as daunting as a steep, seemingly endless hill. Don't aim for heroic, earth-shattering feats today. Instead, aim for consistent, deliberate effort. This singular act of bravely facing a small hill difficulty will, believe me, build invaluable confidence, solidify your mental fortitude, and profoundly prepare you for navigating the bigger, more complex challenges that inevitably lie further down your path. It is in these seemingly small, everyday acts of courage that true, lasting progress truly begins to cement itself within you. Day 5 and 6. Recognize Vanity Fair and Giant Despair. As Christian courageously pressed onward on his intricate journey, he encountered two profoundly powerful allegories that represent some of humanity's most persistent internal and external struggles. First, Vanity Fair, a bustling, alluring town utterly consumed by empty distractions, superficial temptations, and fleeting pleasures. And later, the terrifying Giant Despair, a monstrous figure who captures pilgrims, locks them away in the suffocating darkness of Doubting Castle, and systematically attempts to crush every last vestige of their hope. For these crucial 2 days, your deeply insightful task is to meticulously recognize the Vanity Fairs and the Giant Despairs that operate, often subtly, within the landscape of your own life. First, let's turn our attention to Vanity Fair. What are the materialistic distractions that persistently tug at your attention, diverting you from your true path? The endless streams of digital entertainment, promising escape but delivering only fleeting distraction? The insidious allure of social media comparisons, fostering feelings of inadequacy rather than connection? The relentless pursuit of superficial achievements or external validation that ultimately leaves you feeling empty or profoundly unmoored. Vanity Fair encompasses anything that promises instant satisfaction, fleeting pleasure, or superficial comfort, but ultimately leaves you feeling drained, disconnected, or significantly diverted from your deeper values and goals. It could manifest as excessive online shopping, that impulsive grab for temporary gratification, the seemingly endless scrolling through feeds, consuming precious time and mental energy, the relentless chase after external accolades at the expense of your inner peace, or the constant, exhausting need for the approval of others. These distractions might initially seem harmless, even pleasurable, but they insidiously consume your most valuable resources. Your time, your energy, and your precious mental focus, resources that could be powerfully directed towards your genuine progress and well-being. Then, there's the formidable Giant Despair. These are the overwhelming, paralyzing feelings of hopelessness, the relentless onslaught of negative self-talk, the pervasive doubts that immobilize you and prevent you from taking action, the deeply ingrained belief that you're simply not good enough, or that your most earnest efforts are ultimately futile. Giant despair attempts to make you feel utterly trapped, convinced, against all evidence, that there is no possible way out of your current predicament. It could manifest as chronic worry that saps your vitality, a crippling perfectionism that consistently prevents you from even beginning, or a deep-seated, paralyzing fear of failure or judgment that keeps you playing small. Your action plan for these 2 days is centered around developing profound conscious awareness. On day 5, focus intensely on Vanity Fair. Spend dedicated time observing your daily habits and where your attention naturally gravitates. Where do you instinctively seek comfort or escape? Where do you get easily distracted, pulled away from your intentions? Identify specific distractions. For instance, if you recognize excessive social media consumption, choose a designated hour or several to put your phone completely away, out of sight. If it's impulsive or excessive spending, commit to a no non-essential purchases rule for this specific day. The core practice here is to consciously choose to redirect your focus from these external allurements towards something that genuinely nurtures your inner self, perhaps returning to your journal, revisiting the wisdom from your evangelist, or engaging in a mindful activity. On day 6, bravely tackle giant despair. When those despairing thoughts inevitably arise, and they will, don't try to immediately suppress them or fight them off. Instead, practice acknowledging them with a degree of detached observation. You might gently say to yourself, there's giant despair trying to tell me I can't do this, that it's all pointless. Once acknowledged, consciously challenge them. Ask yourself, is there any genuine empirical evidence for this thought? What's an alternative, more empowering, more truthful perspective I could adopt? Remind yourself of past successes, no matter how seemingly small or insignificant. Practice genuine gratitude for what you do have, for the strengths you possess, for the progress you've already made. The ultimate goal isn't to magically eliminate these powerful internal and external forces entirely. That's often an unrealistic expectation. Rather, it's to meticulously recognize their profound influence, to understand their tactics, and then to consciously, deliberately choose not to be enslaved by them. It's about developing the inner strength, the mental resilience, and the self-awareness to navigate past them, rather than being swept away by their currents or locked down by their deceptive promises. These 2 days are about liberation through awareness and conscious choice. Day 7. Find your key of promise. In one of the most poignant and powerful moments of Christian's arduous journey, during his terrifying imprisonment in the dungeon of Giant Despair's Doubting Castle, he remembers. He recalls, with a sudden flash of profound insight and hope, that he possesses a key of promise in his bosom. A key, he realizes, that has the miraculous power to unlock any lock in that desolate, despair-filled castle. This key, as Bunyan reveals, represents unwavering hope, steadfast faith, and the eternal truth of divine promises. On your day 7, after navigating your burdens, seeking wisdom, conquering a small challenge, and facing down distractions and despair, you are going to find, define, and reaffirm your own personal key of promise. What is that profound core belief, that unwavering hope, that deeply held conviction, or that fundamental principle that grants you immense strength, even when everything else in your world feels uncertain, chaotic, or even hopeless? This isn't about conjuring up some naive, blind optimism. No, this is about consciously and profoundly reconnecting with a fundamental, internal truth that genuinely empowers you and imbues your life with enduring meaning and purpose. For some, this key of promise might be a deeply rooted spiritual belief, a profound faith in a higher power, an expansive sense of universal interconnectedness, or the deeply comforting conviction that you are inherently loved, supported, and guided. For others, it might manifest as a personal mantra, a powerfully resonant affirmation that speaks directly to your soul. I am infinitely capable. Growth is always possible for me. I am more than enough, just as I am. It could be a profound quote that consistently inspires you, a guiding principle that you consciously live by, or a deeply personal, cherished hope for the future that actively fuels and energizes your present actions. This key of promise is your ultimate anchor, your unwavering source of internal resilience, your infallible inner compass when you inevitably feel lost or adrift in the vastness of life's challenges. Your deeply meaningful action for today. Spend dedicated, reflective time reconnecting with this core belief or hope. Meditate on it. How does it truly make you feel in your body, in your heart, in your mind? How does it actively empower you to move forward, to face adversity, to strive for more? And then here's the crucial step. Write it down. Make it tangible. Give it form. Articulate it clearly and powerfully in your journal, on a sticky note, as your phone background, or even framed on your wall. By consciously articulating and solidifying your key of promise, you dramatically strengthen its power and presence in your life, transforming it into a readily accessible, immediate tool for liberation and empowerment. When you next encounter a giant despair trying to trap you, or feel lost in the alluring, yet empty, chaos of Vanity Fair. This final day is about consciously cultivating an enduring source of hope, bolstering your inner conviction, and remembering, unequivocally, what truly liberates you and fuels your ongoing progress. And there you have it, my fellow travelers, your 7-day Pilgrim's Action Plan. A meticulously crafted, week-long journey thoughtfully designed to guide you from courageously identifying your deepest burdens to joyfully rediscovering your most profound, resilient sources of strength. It's a path, an experience, that mirrors the timeless wisdom embedded in Bunyan's timeless allegory, but tailored specifically for the rich tapestry of your modern life. Remember, this profound journey, much like Christians, is not meant to be a superficial, one-and-done solution. Oh no. Just as Christians' epic pilgrimage continued long after these initial foundational stages, your personal progress is an exhilarating, ongoing, lifelong process. Think of this past week not as the end, but as a powerful, transformative beginning, a conscious reset, a bold new direction, a deeply intentional sowing of seeds for future growth. You have the freedom, and indeed, the encouragement, to repeat these steps, to adapt them to your evolving needs, and to continuously build upon the profound insights you've gained. The true beauty and enduring power of this framework, so brilliantly inspired by Bunyan's timeless allegory, lies in its remarkable adaptability, its inherent flexibility to precisely fit the unique contours of your life and the specific challenges you face. So, with all the warmth and encouragement I can muster, I genuinely invite you to embrace this challenge. Engage with it honestly, with a boundless sense of curiosity, and with an unwavering, genuine desire for profound personal growth. As you courageously embark on your own unique progress, I would absolutely love to hear about it. This isn't just about my voice, it's about our shared journey. Please share your experiences, your revelations, your struggles, and your triumphs in the comments section below. What's your most significant burden that you've now named? Who or what has emerged as your evangelist, guiding your steps? What hill difficulty did you bravely tackle, and what did it teach you? And perhaps most importantly, what is your deeply personal key of promise that now empowers you? Let's intentionally build a vibrant, supportive community of modern pilgrims, actively supporting and uplifting each other on our individual, yet interconnected, journeys towards our own magnificent, personal celestial cities. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for joining me on this deeply meaningful exploration, and I wholeheartedly wish you all the very best on your continued, incredible path. Alright, we've journeyed through the slough of despond, climbed the hill difficulty, navigated the valley of the shadow of death, and even escaped the clutches of giant despair. We've seen Christians stumble, fight, learn, and grow, all in pursuit of something greater. It's a journey filled with allegory, rich in spiritual meaning, and undeniably profound. But beyond the theological intricacies and the historical context, what are the universal, timeless truths that John Bunyan's masterpiece, The Pilgrim's Progress, offers us even today in our own complex lives? If we were to distill this entire 180-minute epic into 3 memorable, impactful takeaways that we can easily remember and, more importantly, apply to our own paths, what would they be? Let's dive into what I consider the 3 core lessons from the Pilgrim's Path. Lessons that resonate far beyond the pages of this venerable book. Our first core lesson, perhaps the most foundational, is this: the journey is the destination. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. Every stumble, every battle, and every moment of rest along the way is not just an obstacle to overcome or a pause to endure. It is an integral, transformative part of the process itself. Think about Christian at the very beginning. He's a man burdened, desperate to escape the city of destruction, obsessed with reaching the celestial city. And yes, that ultimate destination remains his driving force. But what Bunyan so masterfully illustrates is that Christian isn't just physically moving from point A to point B. He is becoming someone new with every step. The man who leaves his city with a heavy burden and a cry of "What shall I do?" is vastly different from the man who eventually crosses the river. How did this transformation happen? Not by instantaneously arriving at a state of enlightenment, but through the arduous, often messy, and thoroughly imperfect act of moving forward. Consider his first major hurdle, the Slough of Despond. It's a swamp of doubt and fear, filled with the filth and scum of sin. Christian falls in, struggles, and is initially helped out by help, a figure symbolizing divine assistance. He doesn't magically learn to avoid all future quagmires after this. In fact, he continues to face moments of doubt and despair throughout his journey. The point isn't that he becomes infallible, but that each time he faces a similar challenge, he does so with a little more experience, a little more resilience, and a deeper understanding of himself and the path. He learns not to bypass suffering, but to navigate it, to grow within it. Then there are the battles. His epic confrontation with Apollyon in the Valley of Humiliation is a prime example. This isn't a minor skirmish. It's a brutal, life-threatening combat where Christian is wounded, even temporarily falls. He doesn't emerge victorious without scars, without pain. But the victory itself isn't merely about defeating the enemy. It's about the courage discovered, the strength forged under pressure, the unwavering commitment to his path despite overwhelming odds. These battles are not detours from the journey. They are the journey, shaping him into the pilgrim he needs to be. They teach him reliance, perseverance, and faith in a way that peaceful travel never could. And what about the rest stops? The house of the interpreter, where he learns profound allegorical lessons. The palace beautiful, where he receives armor, nourishment, and fellowship. The shepherds on the delectable mountains, who offer guidance and a glimpse of the celestial city. These aren't just breaks. They are vital periods of reflection, learning, and replenishment. They are where understanding deepens, where resources are acquired, and where strength is renewed. Without these moments, the arduous travel would be unsustainable. They prove that true progress isn't a relentless, unbroken sprint, but a rhythm of effort and restoration, of active engagement and quiet contemplation. So, when we look at our own lives, how often do we fixate solely on the end goal? Whether it's a career milestone, a personal achievement, or a state of being we aspire to, we often view the process leading up to it as merely a means to an end. But Bunyan reminds us that the stumbling blocks, the detours, the hard-fought victories, and even the moments of quiet reflection are not just things that happen on the way. They are the way. They are the crucibles in which our character is refined, our understanding broadened, and our capacity for joy and resilience expanded. To truly embrace the journey as the destination means to find meaning and value in every step, to appreciate the growth inherent in the struggle, and to recognize that the person we become through the process is the most profound reward. Perfection is an elusive, often paralyzing, ideal. Progress, on the other hand, is attainable, continuous, and deeply enriching. It's about the continuous act of becoming, the beautiful, messy, unfolding narrative of our lives. The second core lesson from the Pilgrim's Path is equally profound and perhaps even more relevant in our increasingly individualistic world. You cannot walk alone. The journey is intensely personal. Yes, Christian makes a choice to leave his family and set out by himself. He must answer for his own actions and bear his own burdens. But it is emphatically not solitary. Guidance, fellowship, and community are not mere conveniences. They are absolutely essential for navigating the treacherous path to anything worthwhile. From the very outset, Christian is shown the way by Evangelist. It's Evangelist who points him to the wicket gate, who gives him the scroll, who offers timely warnings and redirections when Christian strays. Evangelist isn't Christian's constant companion, but he is the initial guide, the catalyst, the mentor who sets Christian on the right course and periodically checks in to ensure he hasn't completely lost his way. How many times in our own lives do we need that initial spark, that wise counsel, that person who sees potential in us and points us towards a path we might not have even recognized? Evangelist represents that crucial external wisdom, the voice that cuts through confusion and offers clarity. Without him, Christian would likely have perished in the city of destruction or gotten utterly lost on the byways. But guidance, while vital, isn't enough. The long stretches of the path require something more immediate, more shared: fellowship. This is where characters like Faithful and Hopeful come in. Faithful, Christian's companion through the perilous Vanity Fair, is perhaps one of the most poignant figures in the book. They share their stories, encourage one another, and face persecution side by side. Faithful's eventual martyrdom is a stark reminder of the cost of commitment, and Christian is profoundly affected by it. This shared experience, the mutual support, the strength derived from not being the only one facing a particular trial, is invaluable. Think about walking through the valley of the shadow of death with Faithful beside him. While Faithful isn't literally present during Christian's journey through this darkest valley, he meets Faithful later. The concept of having a companion through dark times is powerfully illustrated by their subsequent journey together. When Christian does walk through Vanity Fair and other trials with Faithful, the impact of their solidarity is undeniable. Later, after Faithful's tragic end, Hopeful joins Christian. Hopeful becomes an unwavering source of encouragement, particularly during their imprisonment in Doubting Castle. When Christian is overwhelmed by despair and considers taking his own life, it is Hopeful's steadfast counsel, his reminding Christian of past deliverances and future promises, that keeps Christian from giving in. Hopeful is the embodiment of resilience and steadfastness, a true companion who actively pulls Christian back from the brink. This illustrates a profound truth. We often need others to hold hope for us when we cannot hold it for ourselves. We need their perspective, their unwavering belief, to help us rediscover our own. Beyond individual companions, Bunyan also shows us the necessity of community. The Palace Beautiful isn't just a rest stop. It's a spiritual haven, a place of community and preparation. Here, Christian is welcomed, fed, instructed, and equipped with the armor of God for the battles ahead. It's a place where he gains strength from others who share his journey and his ultimate goal. Similarly, the shepherds on the Delectable Mountains represent a wise, discerning community that offers panoramic views of the path ahead and warns against dangers like the byway to hell. These communities provide more than just transient help. They offer belonging, collective wisdom, and a sense of shared purpose that fortifies the pilgrim for the long haul. In our own lives, it's easy to believe that we must be entirely self-sufficient, that admitting a need for help is a sign of weakness. But the Pilgrim's Progress utterly debunks this myth. Whether it's a mentor who guides us, a friend who stands with us through thick and thin, or a community that provides a sense of belonging and support, we are designed for connection. Trying to go it alone, as Christian's initial solitary journey after leaving his family briefly demonstrates, can lead to increased vulnerability, isolation, and a greater likelihood of giving up. Recognizing that our personal journey is strengthened, not diminished, by the presence of others is a powerful truth. It means actively seeking out wise counsel, fostering genuine friendships, and engaging with communities that uplift and challenge us. We are not meant to walk alone. Indeed, we often cannot reach our destination without the hands, voices, and hearts of those who walk beside us. And now, for our third and final core lesson from Christian's incredible journey, one that offers immense power in our darkest moments. Hope is your key. In the darkest prisons of doubt and despair, the key to escape is not external but internal, a promise or a belief you choose to hold on to. This lesson is most vividly illustrated in one of the most memorable and harrowing episodes of the entire book: Christian and Hopeful's imprisonment in Doubting Castle by Giant Despair. Imagine the scene. After straying from the path, Christian and Hopeful are captured by the tyrannical Giant Despair and dragged into his formidable castle. They are beaten, starved, and subjected to the cruelest psychological torture. Giant despair tells them there is no hope, no escape, and even encourages them to take their own lives. Christian, true to his human nature, sinks into the depths of despair, believing their situation is utterly hopeless. He remembers his past errors, magnifies his current predicament, and is utterly convinced of their impending doom. He, the one who had bravely faced Apollyon and navigated the valley of the shadow of death, is now utterly broken by the weight of doubt and hopelessness. But then, a pivotal moment occurs. As he lies in that dark dungeon, utterly spent, on the verge of giving up, Christian suddenly remembers something. He exclaims, "What a fool," he says. "Am I thus to lie in a stinking dungeon, when I may as well be at liberty? I have a key in my bosom, called promise, that will, I am persuaded, open any lock in Doubting Castle." This realization, this sudden memory, changes everything. He tries the key, and indeed, it unlocks every door in the castle, from the dungeon door to the outermost gate, allowing him and hopeful to escape to freedom. What is so profoundly impactful about this moment is that the key was always there. It wasn't provided by an external force at the last minute. It wasn't a sudden miracle from the outside. It was a key he already possessed, tucked away in his bosom, a symbol of his innermost being, his core convictions. The key was called promise, a belief, a truth, a commitment to something greater than his immediate circumstances. In his despair, he had simply forgotten it, overlooked it, allowed the overwhelming negativity to obscure its very presence. This isn't just a literal key. It's a powerful metaphor for the internal resources we all possess when faced with our own doubting castles of life. We all encounter moments, periods, or even prolonged seasons of doubt, despair, and seemingly insurmountable challenges. We feel trapped, convinced there's no way out, that our situation is hopeless. And in those moments, like Christian, we often forget the keys we carry. What does promise represent for us today? It can be a deeply held personal value, a spiritual conviction, a promise from a loved one, a memory of past resilience, a fundamental belief in our own capacity to overcome, or even just the unwavering truth that this too shall pass. It's that internal anchor, that unshakable truth that allows us to find a way forward when all external signs point to futility. It's the choice to remember, to believe, and to act upon that belief, even when our feelings scream otherwise. Hope, in this sense, isn't a passive wish. It's an active internal force, a deliberate act of choosing to believe in possibility when confronted by impossibility. The beauty of this lesson is its universality. We don't need to subscribe to Christian's specific theological framework to understand the power of remembering our key. It teaches us that true escape from despair often begins not with a change in external circumstances, but with an internal shift, a recollection of our inherent strengths, our guiding principles, or the promises we've been given or have given ourselves. It's about finding that core belief, that internal spark, that allows us to unlock the chains of doubt and step back into the light. It's about remembering that even in the darkest dungeons, we often possess the very means of our own liberation, if only we choose to remember and use them. Hope is not just a feeling. It is an action, a key that turns the lock from within. So, there you have them, 3 core lessons from the Pilgrim's Progress, distilled from Christian's arduous, yet ultimately triumphant journey. First, the journey is the destination, reminding us that progress, not perfection, is the goal, and that every step, every stumble, and every moment of rest is part of our transformation. Second, you cannot walk alone, emphasizing the essential need for guidance, fellowship, and community on any meaningful path. And third, hope is your key, teaching us that even in the darkest prisons of doubt and despair, the power to escape often lies within, in a promise or a belief we choose to hold on to. These aren't just allegorical insights from a centuries-old book. They are timeless truths, ready to be applied to the unique and personal pilgrim's path each of us is walking today. May you find your own progress, your own companions, and always remember the key you carry within. And so, we arrive at a moment of reflection, a juncture in our own journey together. We've traversed the perilous landscapes of the soul's striving, witnessed the unwavering, often bewildered progress of Christian, and perhaps, just perhaps, seen a flickering echo of our own experiences in his encounters. We've unraveled the allegories, empathized with the universal struggles, and celebrated the glimmers of hope that illuminate the darkest valleys. But the true power of the Pilgrim's Progress, like all timeless literature, doesn't merely lie in its historical context or its literary brilliance. It lies in its ability to spark something within us, to call us to embark on our own progress. This conversation, this journey we've just shared, is only the beginning. It's an invitation, a gentle nudge, for you to take the next step. My profound hope is that this deep dive has ignited a new curiosity, a renewed appreciation for John Bunyan's magnificent work. It is, I truly believe, a book that deserves to be held, to be underlined, to be dog-eared, to be lived with. So, my first and most earnest call to action for you is this: get a copy of The Pilgrim's Progress and read it for yourself. Read it not as a relic from a distant past, but as a vibrant, living text, brimming with insights for your modern life. Let me tell you, there's a unique magic in turning those pages, in following Christian's footsteps with your own eyes, at your own pace. There's a deeper resonance when you encounter the Slough of Despond, or face the terrifying Apollyon, or walk through the valley of the shadow of death, directly from Bunyan's own words. This isn't merely about consuming content. It's about engaging in a profound, personal dialogue with a masterpiece that has guided and inspired generations. I urge you to approach it with the same humanized perspective we've cultivated here today. See Christian not as a flat, allegorical figure, but as a deeply relatable human being, flawed and striving, facing dilemmas that feel startlingly contemporary. When you read, imagine yourself in his shoes, feel the weight of his burden, the fear in his heart, the occasional flicker of doubt, and the ultimate, unyielding hope that propels him forward. Look for your own giants and valleys reflected in his trials. Seek out the moments of grace and fellowship that mirror your own experiences of unexpected support. The links to my favorite editions, including some beautiful illustrated versions that truly bring the journey to life, are in the description below. Picking one up is an investment, not just in a book, but in a lifelong companion for your own path. Because here's the truth, we are all pilgrims. Each of us is on a journey unique and personal, yet fundamentally human in its struggles and its triumphs. We all face our own versions of the burdens Christian carried, the temptations he resisted, the difficult hills he had to climb. And often, these burdens, these giants and valleys, can feel overwhelmingly isolating. But that's precisely where the power of shared experience and the wisdom of stories like Bunyan's truly comes into play. It reminds us that we are not alone, and it reminds us that there is immense power, immense courage, in simply naming our challenges. It's the very first step toward finding a path through them, much like Christian had to acknowledge his oppressive burden before he could seek relief. So, for my second call to action, I invite you to step into our shared space, our little corner of the internet where we can connect, support, and learn from one another. In the comments below, I want you to share with me, with our community, what is the biggest giant or valley you are facing on your own journey right now? Perhaps it's a towering professional aspiration that feels daunting, or a personal habit you're struggling to overcome. Maybe it's a difficult emotional landscape you're navigating, or a complex decision that weighs heavily on your spirit, casting a long shadow over your days. It could be a period of intense doubt, a sense of aimlessness, or a specific obstacle that seems insurmountable. There's no judgment here, only empathy and understanding. Your vulnerability, your willingness to share, isn't a sign of weakness. It's a testament to your courage and a profound act of connection. By articulating what you face, you not only clarify it for yourself, but you also light a beacon for someone else who might be battling a similar foe in silence. I'll be down there, reading every single comment, engaging with your insights, and offering what encouragement I can. And I urge you, too, to read the comments of others, to offer a kind word, to share your own experiences. Let's cultivate a true community of fellow travelers, cheering each other on as we navigate our individual pilgrimages. If you found value in this conversation, if seeing timeless literature through a fresh, Human Lens resonates with you, if you appreciate these deep dives into stories that offer profound guidance for modern life, then I have a third invitation for you. I invite you to become a more permanent part of this journey, to join our growing community of curious minds and seeking hearts. Subscribe to this channel. It's more than just a click. It's a declaration that you're ready to explore deeper, to question more, and to find meaning and wisdom in places you might not have expected. Here, we believe that the classics aren't dusty old texts. They are living, breathing guides, rich with insight for navigating the complexities of contemporary existence. We explore the human condition, the universal struggles and triumphs, through the lens of literature, and we connect it directly to the beating heart of your everyday life. By subscribing, you're ensuring that you don't miss our future explorations. And please, don't forget to hit that notification bell, because you won't want to miss our next adventure into the literary landscape. We have so many more journeys to embark on together, so many more insights to uncover, so many more pilgrims' progresses to understand and apply. Each video is crafted with care, designed not just to entertain, but to spark thought, to inspire reflection, and perhaps, just perhaps, to light a small, steady lamp in your own difficult path. Your subscription helps this channel grow, allowing us to continue creating content that challenges, inspires, and connects. It's a vote for meaningful conversations about the profound stories that shape us. Ultimately, The Pilgrim's Progress is a story of profound personal transformation, of one soul's relentless pursuit of truth, purpose, and a better future. But it's also your story waiting to unfold. You've been listening, you've been reflecting, you've been engaging with these powerful ideas. Now it's time to act. Don't wait for the perfect map, the perfect companion, or the perfect moment. Sometimes the most important steps are taken when you're still a little afraid, still a little uncertain, but compelled by an inner longing for something more, a deep-seated desire for growth and understanding. Christian didn't have all the answers when he left the city of destruction. He just had a burning conviction, a heavy burden, and a willingness to move forward, to take that very first step, even into the unknown. Every grand journey, every significant change, every personal breakthrough begins with a single, deliberate action. It's rarely a grand leap. More often, it's a small, consistent movement in a new direction. So, as we close this chapter on John Bunyan's enduring masterpiece, I want to leave you with a simple yet profound truth, a truth that echoes through the ages and resonates within each of us, a truth that Bunyan himself would Ave championed with every fiber of his being. Your progress begins now. Take the first step, whatever that means for you today, whether it's picking up that book, sharing your biggest challenge in the comments, or simply committing to a small, positive change in your own life. Embrace it. Take that step with intention, with courage, and with the knowledge that you are part of a larger, ongoing human pilgrimage. Thank you for being here, for your open mind, and for joining me on this incredible journey. Until next time, keep seeking, keep striving, and keep progressing.